Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and it's been a while, but Wine Chan's back. Because you know why? Because it's the rule of 8. We had episode 5 and 6, which is the Isayama rule of 5 and 6 with episodes 20 and 21. And so, or episodes 21 and 22. And then my rule, anytime we have like a 12 episode core, is that we have the rule of 8. So the 8th episode, in my opinion, is always a good one, or something important happens in the 8th episode. And so I was trying to think back. I was like, okay, in the 8th episode, that is the one right after Small Blade. So they all are figuring out about Eren in the Titan form. There's that. In season 2, episode 8 is when they're on the wall, and Eren gets taken right before Children of the Forest. So there's that. In season 3, episode 8 is right when they're going after Rod Reese, and he's going after towards towards Wall Rose. And then in season 4, episode 8 would have been the Assassin's Bullet. So lots of things happening. It's usually not as crazy. With Attack on Titan, the 8th episode hasn't been like an insane episode like the Rule of 5, Rule of 6. But the 8th episode in this series has always been one that's like an important turning point. Like something important happens, even if it's not crazy. And it's part 2, so, crazy stuff. Ooh. It's blackberry honey wine. I would say this is in honor of Pixis, but Pixis would not, it's a sweet wine, and I don't think Pixis would be a sweet wine drinker. I think he'd be like a Merlot. I imagine that if anybody would drink blackberry honey wine, I would almost say Hanji, but Hanji doesn't seem like a wine drinker. She seems like Levi, that they just want tea. I'd say Hitch. Hitch would drink blackberry honey wine. That seems like her deal. Speaking of which, I'm glad that old Hitch is back. I'm glad she's back in the fray, and Annie's back, and things are in motion. It's insanity. I have lots of comments. I have lots of comments that are from episodes 20 and 21 and 22 from Patreon, as well as episode 19 and 20 from YouTube. I haven't gotten through all of the comments in episode 20. Y'all, episode 20 is a wild trip, so y'all left lots of comments, which is awesome. I haven't got through all of them, so I'm only going to talk about a couple of the episode 20 comments, but I did finish up all the episode 19 comments. So some of these comments I'm actually going to save towards the end of the discussion with this video, because they deal with Eren. And Eren is absent at this point. Well, he's not absent. He's off destroying the world, but or on his way to. But most of these comments are about Eren, so I'm going to hold off on those. I want to have like an Eren section at the end, because I feel like with each episode, unless we see Eren, we need to touch base on him, just to touch base on what everybody's saying about him and the whole themes of the episode, things like that. But a couple of these comments relate to the last episode, or episode 22. And I want to touch base on before we start. So Alexander Q, speaking of Pixis, noted that Pixis got his final drink, unlike Gelgar from season 2. I was like, man, poor Gelgar. Remember him? Remember how him and Nanaba died back in season 2 and he didn't get a drink? Hashtag tears for Gelgar. But Pixis got his final drink. He didn't get killed by a lady titan, but he did get his final drink. So I think that's pretty good. There was a Sacha Purvis made a note, and I'm going to have more Sacha with your comments later. But Sacha made a note, and several of you also did as well on Patreon, about the connection between Ymir and Mikasa. And I thought that was really interesting. I touched base on it last episode, talking about how Eren empathized with Ymir, who was a slave, but said all those hurtful things to Mikasa, obviously under the guise, I think, to distance himself from her. But it's funny because Mikasa and Ymir have this big connection. They both have this unshaking devotion towards someone. Ymir had this devotion towards the king, the original King Fritz. She never tried to hurt him. She had 3 of his kids. She sacrificed herself to save him, despite not getting any of that reciprocated, right? And you could argue that Eren has reciprocated that emotion to Mikasa back in season 2. I would argue that too. But it is funny that Mikasa, to me, has had that same type of devotion towards Eren that Ymir had towards King Fritz. And I'm curious if that has something to do with the Ackerman bloodline, if there's a reason of that, but I'm assuming we'll find out as the story goes. There's still lots of mysteries left in this series, but I thought that was really interesting. And so, Zeke, Sacha Purvis also noted, Zeke kind of had those tentacle things touch him, and I went back and rewatched it and was like, oh yeah, he did. Those weird, whenever that centipede, the something, came out and connected Eren's head to his body, the tentacles came out and, seemed like they were touching Zeke. So I'm like, Is Zeke part of the founding Titan along with Eren? I'm guessing he is. That would make a lot of sense because how could Eren keep using the founding Titan if Zeke wasn't present? So is Zeke just stuck up there with Eren inside this monstrosity and he's stuck in the paths with Eren and Ymir? I guess Zeke's stuck up there with him. So that would solve the problem. Okay, so the two brothers are together. Fancy that. That they're together possibly in this founding Titan alongside it. Ugh. And meanwhile, the other 5 Titan shifters are stuck on parity. Okay, that makes sense. Or at least that's what I think. I think Zeke is in the paths with Eren and the founder because that's the only way Eren can keep using Ymir is through Zeke. So that makes sense. Okay. Algim noted about Reiner's trauma, and this is so true. Reiner back in episode 19 went through all the motions of trauma. Like everything went bad for Reiner, right? Everything went bad. He couldn't die. He had to watch Falco get turned into a Titan. He had to watch Gabby watch him nearly get eaten by Falco. He had to watch his comrade Porco say that he saw Marcel's memories and that he knew about Reiner being weak and Marcel sacrificing himself to save Reiner. And then Porco sacrificed himself to save Reiner and save Falco as well. And he did it while wearing the scout jacket, which Algim noted was a callback to Reiner's soldier persona. And he also had half of his face eaten, which was the same side of his face as Marco that had been eaten, which Reiner helped kill. So that was just more trauma. And then on top of that, on top of everything else, Gabby still could inherit the armor Titan because now Falco's inherited the jaw. So his job isn't done. So I'm like, damn, Reiner needed a nap after all that. I'm glad he's getting a nap. I'm glad he's getting some sleep. Armin needs some sleep now, but I'm glad that Reiner and Levi have been able to nap it off because they've been through some things. But thank you, Algim. That was really, really good. Some dude notes, and some dude and Sasha Purvis also noted this, that Surma and the young cadets, they were not in on the wine scandal, which I kind of like in the moment of episode 22 was like, ha, you get your karma. No, they weren't in on the wine scandal. They were just, they weren't even Jaegerists yet. They had just been recruited by Floch, but this wine had been in dissemination for a long time. So they weren't actually responsible. They just beat the snot out of Keith, and it's ironic that Keith comes back to save them all. So there you have it. Be Happy noted that Ymir, just like with the flower having 9 petals and the blood on it, there are 13 hands, 13 sets of fingers pointed at Ymir when they ask who killed the pig. And it's funny because Ymir only lived 13 years. And that's how many years the Titan shifters can live. So that's a fun little bit of symbolism there. And so tying to some dude's comment, Maya B also noted the idea of Annie and Annie's comments to Marlo back in episode 23 of season 1. Smile is one of my favorite episodes of season 1. In hindsight, I really like Smile, and I keep coming back to it. It keeps coming back and being an important episode, even 4 seasons later. But the idea that Annie was saying that even ordinary people who can't stand up to tyranny are still human and still deserve rights like anybody else. And that it's not, not everybody can be a hero and not everybody can stand up. Some people are bystanders, like what Keith was. And so Annie's saying, like, even if I'm swept along in the current, even if I'm going with the flow and I'm not anybody special, if it meant I was human, I would take it, right? And so that kind of ties to what Sacha Purvis was saying and what some dude was saying about Surma and the others, that, yeah, they were swept up in the moment with the Jaegerists, but did they deserve to die, needlessly? And Keith Shaddis said no. And he stood up and protected them. He protected the people that beat the snot out of him because that was the right thing to do. It was Children of the Forest 2.0. He was like, no. Yeah, violence. And Sacha Purvis noted about this too. Violence is inevitable. In the human condition, violence is inevitable. And so is possibly fighting. But what's also inevitable is the idea of people banding together against all odds. And I feel like that's it's a contrast between Eren and Armin. Eren is embracing this violence is inevitable, so let's just do the damn thing and kill all these people and then we'll be free. And Armin's embracing the other side of that, where he's like, no, we band together. We're pack animals, like Arthur Browse says. We're pack animals. We band together and help people. And that's what we do as well as humans. So it's interesting you have Armin and Eren kind of faced as this 2 sides of the same coin, just like Reiner and Eren were, right? It's like we have 3 sides to a coin here. But yeah, Armin and Eren are both representing 2 different sides of the human experience. And it's fascinating, right? And you can argue for both sides, right? I'm obviously arguing for Armin's side, but that's me. But then I get, based on your circumstance, how you might argue for Aaron's side. And if you're viewing Aaron's side, you might find Armin's side as not being possible or having lots of flaws, and you can find the same way towards Aaron's side as well. So it's complicated, and that's kind of what's amazing about this story, is that Isayama gives us all these views and all of these different angles to look at things, and they're so true to the human experience itself. It's beautiful. I'm like, yes, Isayama, absolutely. And so, yeah, just tying back to the idea that, as Maya B said, you know, the people that Aaron's going to destroy, there's this weird paradox. It's like, if they stand up against Aaron, then are they labeled as the enemy and as they deserve to die because they are fighting against what I'm trying to accomplish? Are they guilty for that? But if they stand aside and do nothing, are they guilty because they're complicit? So it's a paradox there, right? You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And at the end of the day, Annie in episode 23 is saying, I really don't care at this point. I just want to be seen as human. I just want to be found. Like what Bertolt said back in Charge. We just want to be found and be recognized as people. And that goes back to what all the Eldians on Marley, they just, and the Gabby's conversation about being the good Eldian, they just want to be seen as human beings and having the same rights as others. And it leads them to either fight back or to sit there and be complacent in the hopes that they'll be viewed as good and obedient. It's fascinating, and I have a feeling I'm going to bring all this up in the recap. The recap's going to be fun, but we're not there yet. I'm almost caught up, though. It's episode 24. There's 5 episodes left, y'all, and I'm caught up. Whew. Cheers to that, but I am ready. It only took 10 minutes. Look at that. But yeah, I do have other comments, but I want to wait until after, at the end of the discussion, because they all have to do mainly with Aaron, and I don't know if we're going to see Aaron in this episode or not. I doubt it. I feel like the rest of this season, I feel like we'll see Aaron in episode 28, 27 or 28, because that's the end of the season, and they need to close out with going back to Aaron and the imminent doom. But I feel like the next couple episodes is all going to be, all right, we have these pieces on the board. They're all moving in different directions. What do we do? And the one thing I am afraid of is that Jean was tempted by the devil Floch in the last episode to just be complacent and accept this new world order. And part of me is like, Jean, you ain't gonna do that. That ain't your life. So I just want Keith to be safe. I want Connie to be safe. I don't know about Connie, especially with him and Falco headed towards Rogako. But I want Keith to be safe. I want them to talk some sense into Connie and whatever that's going to be like, and just for no one else to die. I don't want the death list to get any higher, because I have a feeling if they go against Aaron or they decide to do something like that, then it's going to be bad. So I don't want that. But let's dive in, shall we? We're going to start episode 24 of Attack on Titan, season 4. God. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. There's a lot that happened in this episode. The rule of 8 has not let us down, dear friends. Oh my God. Yes, the squad has assembled. Wow, we're going to talk about this. We are going to talk about, God, all the callbacks, all the character stuff. I feel like, here's the thing though. I feel like, oddly enough, this episode, things happened and were resolved and moved very, very quickly. And so I don't know if maybe it feels like one of those things where the manga had more to it and that the anime has cut out extra parts of the manga that were maybe not plot focused. I don't know. It feels like this episode happened very quickly. And if it was only a chapter and a half, a lot went down in a chapter to chapter and a half in this episode. A lot went down. So I'm like, I imagine that these 40 to 50 page chapters come out and everybody's just sitting there reading going, not what I expected, and just moved on, because I thought most of this episode, to be honest, I thought most of it was going to be just dealing with Connie and Falco. That's what I thought. I thought most of the episode would just be I thought there was going to be this big battle, I thought there was going to be this big battle, all of this stuff, but no, it wasn't. It's the weirdest thing. It's the very weirdest thing. there wasn't this big battle. It got resolved like very quickly. And they met Annie very quickly. Like the threads all connected together. In times of the apocalypse, it's like the Titan shifters are like little beacons to each other, right? Man, like everything came together surprisingly quickly. And I was like, holy crap, we're already assembling everybody. What the hell? Okay. So we've got 25, 26%. We got 4 episodes left of this season. This episode is like the gang all came together really quick, which obviously I'm wondering if I wonder if they assembled everybody in this episode together, and then in the next episode there's going to be a breakdown of like them talking and them going over things. But I feel like there was more in the manga for this episode that got cut because they're trying to condense things to a certain time I have a feeling they want this season to end at a certain place. And so they're cutting a little corner maybe to have either one, they're cutting a few corners and cutting a few things out of the manga to make the episode fit in the 23-minute span and to keep the plot moving for the other episodes. Either that, or Isayama really rushed through the events of this episode to get them all together. But Isayama has taken his time seemingly in doing these things, so I want to say it's the former, but I don't know. Eventually, I will read the manga, and it'll be nice to go back and be like, oh, here's some extra things that happened in case of that. So don't spoil me. I mean, if you want to say that there was stuff cut out from the manga, that's fine. Just don't tell me exactly what, because I want to be surprised about that. We get the gist, though. The gang's all together. Oh, my God. Wow. All the Titan shifters are assembled in one location, with the exception of Zeke and Eren. And Yelena's with them. This is like the Avengers squad, like Parody's Avengers squad. It's the craziest thing. And we'll talk about Eren and how this all factors in at the end of this, because I have a theory about it all, but of course. But yeah, we need to go through this episode. Holy cow. So there are so many character moments. Jean, thank God Jean did not drink the Kool-Aid. For a hot second, Isayama makes you think for a hot second that maybe Jean drank the Kool-Aid, but no. But there's character development with Armin we're going to talk about, with Connie, with Reiner, connections to Mikasa, to Jean, like our main cast. Annie, at this point, Annie's just happy to be here. Annie's like, I am happy to be here. I'm glad to be out of that pod. Christopher Peterson noted, he was like, so the pod and the water around her, it's not really ice, it's their skin, right? So is that just like sweat that's accumulated over the last 4 years? And I was like, ugh. If that's true, gross. So girl needs to get a bath. But maybe that's not true. So yeah, we need to go through this episode because there's quite a bit to talk about. So much happens in this. The rule of 8 did not let me down. It's like this is the rule of 8. This is the turning point. This is the turning point. They've all gathered together to be like, no, what Eren's doing is not right. What Zeke was doing wasn't right, and neither is what Eren is doing. So we're gonna save the world. Literally, we're going to literally save the world. And so to do that, we're at least gonna have to talk to Eren. At least get to him. At least get past the Colossal Titans and get to him. So, buddy. Okay, but we got to get there first. So I love when I start this episode back in episode 3, Declaration of Hope. It had this little content warning at the top during Door of Hope, not Declaration of Hope, during Door of Hope. It had this content warning. This program contains graphic content, adult themes, and violence that may not be suitable for viewers and is inappropriate for children. The content's entirely fictional. The content is intended for mature audiences only. I like that at this point we get it. I'm like, we just had Floch shoot a guy in the head in the last episode, but maybe it's because Hanji's doing it. And Hanji's like, put a content warning on this. I don't want the kids to think. I don't want the kids to look at Hanji and think that she's shooting him by, because she does. Yeah, that guy comes off Oliver. Hang in there and then gets shot. So bring out your dead. We got another one. We got a named person. They got to go on the list. It's been a while since episode 19's travesty, but episode 24... we'll just say, oh, Oliver. Oliver's on the list of the dead. And you know what? I'm going to add Louise. We're going to get to her, but it looks like she's not going to live. Sad Louise. They can't get the shrapnel out of her. Dang it. I'm just going to put Louise on there for now, and if she ends up living, I'll take her off. But we'll see. But it doesn't look like it. We're going to get to that scene. That scene's interesting. But yeah, so Oliver, and it was right through the heart, and it looks like If we go back to that one guy, was he a headshot? It looks like it might have been. Yeah, but she instantly killed him. Or Hanji did. And I love this. I love the shot that Hanji takes him out and is crying. So, having to do things to... And God, we're going to... All the comparisons, we're going to tie everything back in here. And Hanji crying. That's the last of the pursuers, Levi. So Hanji killed him so that they wouldn't chase after Hanji and Levi anymore. And you could see the blood, so it's this big gash across Levi's eye. It's this big gash across it. And Hanji had tied it up with their coat. So breaking down the cart and everything, making tin. Hanji is very equipped. Hanji is resourceful. You know what? We don't give Hanji enough credit in this series for as resourceful as they are. So we're going to put Hanji here. Hanji and Levi. Going to put Hanji right here. I'm going to put Levi right here. We're going to have our big board of everybody in this whole shebang. So I forget sometimes how resourceful Hanji is. Being able to not only fix Levi's wounds, he's got a cut that goes all the way across his eye, down across his face, and then cut all across his cheek. Damn. So yeah. And then I love that Hanji's just stitching it up, knowing how to do medical, like the stitch work. So probably for the same reason you're not... What did they say there? Everyone got turned into Titans and only you survived. Probably for the same reason you're not dead yet, because you're an Ackerman. The immortality trope, cursed to live. Damn. At least Levi's eye is saved. It's just gashed over, right? And then I want to make note that Hanji and Connie and Jean all do the same thing where they're like, I want to make note of that we have Hanji and we're going to put Connie over here. Put Connie over here and we're going to put Jean over here. Okay. And I want to make note that between the three of them, they all do the same thing with their hands. They all express stress the same, right? John does the hands over his ears and she holds her head. They all express stress in the same way. Fun times. But Hanji's thinking back, like looking over at Levi being bandaged up. And what to do now? And Hanji thinking back, we can't stop Zeke anymore. So it's Armin or Commander Pixis. I love that of all people Hanji refers to as being resourceful in this, as being someone that they can turn to, that it's up to Armin or Commander Pixis. The fact that Hanji has faith. So Hanji, oh gosh. So Hanji believes in Armin, right? Because Pixis is dead at this point. So Hanji believes that Armin is the next best person to help. That's such faith in Armin. And going to Armin in this episode, who has no faith in himself at this point, that's amazing that Hanji looks up to Armin saying, no, you can do this. But Hanji saying there, even supposing that Eren does betray Zeke, if the Jaegers control the island with spinal fluid, then we'll be fugitives for the rest of our lives. So saying that, yeah, even if Eren does manage to betray Zeke, even if Eren does do something that's not according to Zeke's plan, even if that happens, then Hanji's like, there's still the problem of the Jaegerists who support Eren, and the Jaegerists are against us, so we're still going to end up being on the run. That's not going to matter. We're either going to have to fight the Jaegerists and kill our own men, or we're going to have to stay on the run. And it's clear that Hanji doesn't want to kill her own men. But saying, it looks like my turn has come, even if I thought I did the right thing. And Sonus, yeah, times change and you end up in a cell. So Hanji at that moment originally intends, it sounds like Hanji intended to do the right thing. Hanji intended to turn themselves in. Maybe. Or stay on the run with Levi. Because Hanji's like, what do I do? Do I turn myself in? Do I fight? Can we be on the run forever? We don't have any food. We don't have any way to survive. unless we go and steal something. And so Hanji's thinking back to Sonus and how Sonus went along quietly and went to the cell and was tortured. And Hanji's like, is it my turn? Am I going to become like Sonus and just accept fate? We'll talk about fate at the end of all this, but accept my fate. Hanji's like, I don't know what to do. Like, is it time? I guess, is it? And kind of has the same views as Keith. We didn't see Keith in this, but the kind of the same views as Keith Shaddis, thinking, well, is it time that my time is over and it's going to be up to the next generation? But what do you say we live out here forever, huh, Levi? Oh, I don't ship Hanji and Levi at all. I view them as best friends. And so I kind of love that idea in that moment. But then, of all things, the paths happen. So the question is, did Levi hear Aaron's thing? We don't get full confirmation of it. Hanji did, but we don't get full confirmation. And I love that Hanji's like, wait, what? And Hanji's near the paths, near the coordinate. Oh. So, interesting. Hanji was near the coordinate just now. Was Mikasa near the coordinate before? So, okay. Because that's the thing. I need to go back and look at episode 21 and see if other people saw the coordinate as well. Hanji was right there at the coordinate. Hanji was at the coordinate. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to pull this up right now, and while I'm talking to you all, I'm going to check that, because now I'm super curious. Like, was Mikasa and Armin or anyone else near the coordinate when they saw the paths, right? We'll just check it, just out of funsies. Just for the sake of being fun. Let's just look at it and see for sure. I'm going to turn the sound off, though, and see what we see here. Okay. Okay. No, they were near it. They could see they were near the coordinate too, just like her. Okay. All right, never mind. I thought for a second that it had something to do with, well, wait a minute. Wait a second. Let me go back to that. Actually, because I was looking at Armin. I was looking at Armin and Mikasa in that moment. But the other people, they're all in front of it too. Well, never mind. I thought for a second that maybe the coordinate had, maybe Levi being an acrobat had something to do with them being near the coordinate, but they were in the same boat as Armin and everybody else. They could see the tree in the distance because Aaron was talking to them, so never mind. But what I think is really cool here is that Hanji, we only spend a second. We don't even get to hear Aaron talking. It's just, it's like Zeke described the powers. It's infinite and in an instant. So it seems like a few seconds. It seems like years, but it can be a few seconds. So in the span of a second, it happens. And Hanji's like, what, Aaron's gonna, what? Like, Hanji's instantly like, wait, what? No way. And that's when Levi manages to wake up, right? And, damn it, Mappa, you know what? We get all sorts of fan service in this show, and you choose now to give us a little bit of Levi fan service. We get to see, like, his abdominal muscles slightly as he lifts himself up. That's all we get. I'll take it. I'll take it. His face is bandaged up, but I'll take it. And all Levi can say is the beast. Where'd that shithead go? And Hanji's like, lie back down. It's been half a day since Zeke and the Jaegers left for Shiganshina. So yeah, what happened? And I love Levi's response. I botched it. He was fully prepared to die, and I didn't see it. So Levi admits that he underestimated Zeke. That he definitely underestimated how far Zeke was willing to go. All right. I mean, that's good that Levi notes that. But Levi has also made a promise to kill Zeke. Because that was Erwin's promise. His promise to Erwin that he would do it. So I feel like Levi does not want to fight Aaron, because I feel like Levi in all this is not going to want to fight Aaron because he cares for Aaron. Levi's always cared for Aaron. He's always stood up for Aaron. He's beat the shit out of him a lot. I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about that going, man, we went from Aaron getting the snot kicked out of him in a courtroom to having this big booming commanding voice commanding all of the subjects of Ymir. How the night changes, right? So I feel like, yeah, Levi does not really want to fight Aaron. That's not on his to-do list. The only thing on Levi's to-do list is to kill Zeke. That's it. It's going to be interesting with him and Yelena there in the same space. That's going to be interesting. I wonder if Levi's going to be like, I'm going to kill your god, so get ready. I don't know how that's going to go. And I guess we'll find out next episode, but But yeah, I just love that we get Levi's little eye, his soft eye there. And he's missing 2 of his fingers got blown off. I didn't see it. So his middle finger and his index finger, he's missing 2 fingers. Yeah. So how is he going to use the ODM gear? How's he going to do that? How's he going to use the ODM gear with just 2 fingers? I don't know, unless they fashion like some kind of prosthetic to help him. I don't know. And then I like Hanji's like, well, that's unfortunate. But right now, and he says, if we run and hide, what will be left? I love his eyes. Like, Levi has, they're almost like a steel gray color, but they almost look blue in this. They almost look like the color of Erwin's. We're going to talk about Erwin in this episode. I have things to say about Erwin, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But he looks so soft in that moment. And I forget, I think all of the audience watching Levi forget that Levi is extremely compassionate. He's just not very good at showing it. He just keeps it hidden a lot. But in here, he's like, if we run and hide, what's going to be left? If we just keep running from this problem and not confront it, we're just going to be on this island as sitting ducks, and there won't be anything left for us by the end of it. So what do we do? I love that expression. It's beautiful. And Hanji's like, oh, I guess you overheard me talking to myself. So I'm curious if Levi saw... I'm wondering if Levi saw the vision or not. I don't know. He says, what are you building? Are you going to pull me on that with a horse? It's a very crude cart, indeed. It's very crude. He's like, there's no way in hell you can stay out of the action. Yeah. Levi's like, you can't pull me on this wagon with a horse and expect to just not be a sitting duck. Like, there's no way. Yeah. And then Hanji's like, you're right. I can't stay out of the action. And then we cut to now, and Hanji's fashioned this cart to hoist Levi around in. My goal is to kill Zeke with that steely look in his eyes. And so he's on the cart, and then he says, it looks like our interests align, Theo McGath and Peak Finger. What an alliance. How weird. How weird. And I like that McGath just has this stone cold. McGath always has this like, it's a very Keith look. It's just these eyes have seen things, and he's just so intense always. And you can't read him. That's the thing about McGath. You can't really read McGath. He's very hard to get a handle on, right? So we're going to bring up old McGath and Peak over here. McGath and Peak. They're going to be put together in all of this. So McGath is like, yeah, well, we don't really have a need for the Beast Titan at this point. We're not getting off the island, so yeah, we probably want to stop him. And Peak is just like, Levi Ackerman, it seems you can stand up to one of the 9. Has and can, but how do you plan on dodging a bullet like that? So in your current state, yeah, how are you going to dodge this bullet? And this conversation, he says, I can't dodge a bullet, but I've come before you in this sad state. Okay? He's like, I'm basically begging. Like, I have nothing that I can use against you in this moment. Whether you shoot or listen is up to you. Here's the thing. This is the crazy part about all this. This conversation between McGath and Levi is very much like Uri and Kenny. It's like the confrontation between Uri and Kenny, right? Except it's the weirdest thing. I'm going to put Uri and Rod and Kenny. That's what this conversation is like. And Hanji's there. So, because you have McGath, who is essentially the leader of, who essentially is the leader of the Marleyan warriors, kind of like Rod was technically the king of parody, the leader of parody. You have that comparison. You have Peak, who is the Titan shifter, kind of like Uri was the Titan shifter, and then you have Levi in kind of the same position as Kenny, right? So you have these, and then Hanji's like hanging out over here, being the recorder of all this. So in this, you have this situation where Levi puts the decision to Magath. He's like, yeah, I can't do anything right now. And Hanji's unarmed, so it's your choice. You can kill us and figure it out on your own. Or maybe we can help you. Maybe we can come to some understanding and help each other, since we both kind of have the same goal. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation. So Levi puts the decision to Magath and Peak. And it's just same thing, right? Except the difference is it's kind of a reversal, right? The difference is that it was up to Uri and Rod whether or not they killed Kenny. And now it's being reversed where it's up to Magath and Peak whether they kill Levi. And Magath chooses not to. And that's a smart choice. He's like, we have this person who has been shown to be able to fight a Titan shifter one-on-one. We have someone that has shown that. And then Peak's going to bring up a point about Hanji here in a second. And I love that stare, Magath just putting the gun to the side and saying, then I'll ask first. You'll say you'll kill Zeke, but where is he now? And that's when Hanji speaks up. Zeke is probably being held by Eren to make use of his royal blood. Okay? And so, no, by the founding Titan. So, this is a very good distinction, and this is a very good distinction, is that Hanji says that Zeke is held by Eren. No, wait a minute. The founding Titan. Hanji's not calling Eren anymore. It's not Eren, it's the founding Titan. Not dignifying it by Eren's name. Probably not so. Probably because Hanji is seeing the writing on the wall. Hanji's like, we're going to have to fight Eren. And Hanji doesn't want to address him as such because that will tie something personal to him, to where she's like, I don't like how it's phrased, but it's really the founding Titan now. Eren's merged with has the power of the founder. So it's not Eren that we're fighting, it's the power of the founder. And that's a much more digestible thing to say, especially if you're close to someone. If you're close to someone, instead of saying, we're going to fight you, Eren, no, we're going to fight what you've become. You've become the founding Titan. And so we're going to fight that instead to save you. Presumably, possibly. We'll talk about it at the end. But yeah, so Hanji reveals that. And here's the thing. Magath and Peak just found out that Zeke has royal blood. They've just discovered all this from Gabby. And that's when Peak says, it seems the Titan expert Hanji knows everything, even more than Marley. And Peak is very good with her words. Peak is very good with phrasing things, especially to seemingly manipulate a situation. So Peak, in this, Peak sees the value in Hanji. Peak sees how Hanji could be valuable because apparently Hanji knows many things about Titans. And Peak's like, she knows more than you, Magath, so maybe we should listen to Hanji. Have you seen the founding Titan? And this is the crazy thing. Hanji says, I know it's so humongous that it seems like nothing can be done. So I wonder if Peak is saying that rhetorically, like, have you seen what we're up against? Have you seen this founding Titan? Because it's huge and monstrous. And Hanji's like, yeah, I know it seems like we can't do anything against it. So with that being the case, we've got no other choice. We've got to pull our powers together. We do, united we stand, divided we fall, sort of thing. Hanji's like, there's no way that any of us can do this alone. We've got to, and Levi's going to go along with this, not necessarily to fight Eren, not necessarily to fight the founding Titan, but because Levi can't sleep, he can't end his day until he fulfills Erwin's promise and kills Zeke. That's their last stand, right? Okay. And so Hanji says that we have to fight together. And I believe that Armin's been reaching the same conclusion as well. Like, we have to fight together. That's the only way this is going to work, is if we work side by side in this. Supposedly. And that's when we have the opening. Ah, yeah. It's great. It's great. So I want to know, in the opening, I was pausing this, that there is a moment where we see Annie as the female Titan. We see Bertolt, and then there's a drop of either tears or blood that falls on Armin, it looks like. Armin, and then like the blood and stuff rises up from Armin, who is the Colossal Titan. And then we see the Warhammer. Okay. Okay. But let's get past that. God. I kind of love this shot of Jean. That Jean in there. And again, I say I love this shot as I'm going to take a photo of it. Because I do. I really do. I love this shot of Jean. He's doing the thing he did during Sasha's death. He's covering his ears. He's like, he just doesn't want to hear it. And he's stressed and doesn't know what to do. Right? So we're going to put Jean. So Jean dealing with the stress of what to do. What do we do in this situation? Okay. And I love the effect that everything is rumbling. Like everything's rumbling around them. The bed, everything. And he's like just sitting on top of the bed. And then you cut to Mikasa, who is like me, a side sleeper. And she has her wrist bandaged up again. And she just looks like she's about to cry. So we'll talk about Mikasa over here. All right. And Mikasa having this crisis of identity. And like she's about to cry because yeah, it's like the person she loves more than anyone else in the world is doing these awful, is about to go do this awful thing. And she's like, what do I do about it? Like, what can I do about it? Do I go against someone I care about like this? And so then we cut back to Hitch. Hitch and Annie. I ship Annie and Armin so hard, but I kind of ship Annie and Hitch too, in a way. It's really sweet. I like Annie and Hitch together. And I love that Annie's watching over Hitch while she's sleeping. It's super cute. So we're going to put Annie and Hitch over here. And I'm going to just put Louise up here when we get to her. We're going to tie Louise in over there. Yep, so Annie and Hitch together. I love it. And I love that Annie this whole time has been watching all the Titans move. Like watching them, and it's like she's had 4 years to sleep essentially, so she's like, I'm not tired right now, probably hungry though, which explains the whole thing. And then there's Reiner with the 2 apples. And I'm curious if the apples symbolize anything. Apples usually, like in Christian symbolism, you have like the forbidden knowledge, things like that, but then you have the apples. I think of like Snow White and the poison apple. You think the apple's usually a sign of like knowledge or things to come. He's not fully healed from the Titan shifter thing, from being the armored Titan, but he has those apples with him. It's curious. We're going to put Reiner over here. Okay. And I'm going to put Falco here. So we have Reiner. Actually going to move Reiner over here in the corner. Put Reiner in the corner. So Reiner's been healing up. Good deal. Glad he's been able to get some sleep. Armin needs some sleep now. Let him and Annie get some sleep. Ha ha ha. But yeah, so Reiner getting a nap, and then Armin, because Armin's not slept. Him and Gabby, they rode all through the night. They rode all through the night with the lantern made out of the Titan, the crystal. It's like, my dudes. But yeah, him and Gabby. And it's funny, you know what's interesting is that Armin, we're going to talk about Armin and Erwin in this discussion because I'm going to bring it up. I had a comment happen on a Tumblr today that I forgot to bring up, and I was like, But yeah, so Armin looking, running through the woods on horseback with Gabby kind of looks a little bit like Erwin and Hanji. A little bit, just by looks alone. But, so we're going to have, we're going to put Armin and Gabby over here. Okay, we'll put them there. So yeah, them riding through the night. All right, which makes sense because then we cut back to Connie and Falco, and they're sitting under the tree, hanging out, just contemplating. And Falco is the embodiment of innocence in this series. Falco is the most cinnamon roll of the cinnamon rolls. There is like not a mean bone in this kid's body. He is the purest soul. Him and Mr. Browse are the purest souls in Attack on Titan. I am convinced. Because Falco's just like, we'll get to the toothbrushing scene where he's like, But Connie contemplating, how do I get my mom to eat Falco? Do I do it by force? And Connie's actually thinking about this. He's like, if he's hurt and he finds out about his Titan powers, then it's over. right? So he's like, do I just force him into my mom's mouth? What do I do? And he's saying, I can't afford to fail. I've got to think of a better way. So Connie's showing Connie's resolve to kill Falco. Connie's resolve to do it, right? And saying that I don't have a choice. And he says, what an innocent kid. And this is the thing. He says he hasn't whined about camping out here with every reason to doubt me. And then him saying that, and he does the same thing that John does. He's like, does he seriously trust me? And I think that Falco does. He's suspicious of Connie, but he still trusts him because otherwise he wouldn't go along with things. And then he looks and sees Armin and Mikasa just staring at him. And he's like, and that look, that face he has, he's like, ah. And then he says, damn it, Sasha, would you have understood? Because that's his other half. Asking, would Sasha have understood what he's about to do? And he says it out loud, right? He says it out loud, and Falco hears him say that, right? But he asks if Sasha would approve or understand. And here's the thing. She would not have approved of this. And I think that's what he's starting to... He knows. He knows she would not have understood. She, back on this rooftop at Marley, she could have shot Gabby, and she purposefully did not, right? She didn't shoot Gabby. So for like kids and stuff, because she rescued Kaya and she has all of Kaya's siblings, she knows what that's like. So yeah, no, she's not gonna... Connie's like, Sasha would not have done the same thing that he's doing. And I think he knows that, but he's, at this point, he's so resolved to help his mother that he's like, I've got to go through with it. And so then Falco's like, well, I thought we were going to a hospital on a deserted village. And Connie's like, yeah, I want to show you something. And I thought it was odd that when he came into the village, when he was leaving with Falco, he had Falco like in front of him on horseback, and now he has him behind. I thought that was interesting because I think he'd want to know where Falco was at all time in case if Falco jumped off, but I guess he trusts him. And so we get to the house with Connie's mom, and they've just put this giant tarp over it, which is surprising. So the Titans kept in a straight line. They didn't go through Rogako. Good enough. It's like a circus tent is what it feels like. It feels like a circus tent. Like they're about to unveil this monster. And they leave the mom there, I'm pretty sure. And then he's like, is this Rogako Village? And Connie's like, how do you know that? And Falco's like, I heard you talking to yourself last night. Yeah. And then Connie's like, shit, I thought he was asleep. And he says, Sasha was your comrade that was shot by Gabby on the airship, wasn't she? And it's like, Falco's piecing it all together. You brought me here knowing who I was, but pretending not to. And you can kind of see Falco's a little angry. He's like, well, why'd you do that? You know, Falco's like questioning, why did he do that? Gah. Did you come here to get revenge on me? And Connie is like, no, stuff like that happens in the heat of battle. So that's a note there, right? He says revenge, in Connie's mind, revenge happens in the heat of battle. This is not revenge. No, Connie does not... Here's the thing. To Connie, it doesn't matter that Falco knows Gabby who killed Sasha. Like, that point has already been... It's in the past to Connie. It's like, that's not what this is. This is him saving somebody he cares about. This is something different. This is not... Revenge, when he says revenge is in the heat of battle, you're not thinking about it. You're just like, oh, this person shot my friend. I'm going to get back at them. Kind of like Floch and them about to throw them out of the airship, right? But Connie's like, no, this is something more premeditated. This is, I know what I'm doing. And it's not out of revenge. It's out of care for my mother. So that kind of ties in the oddest way. I said we'd talk about Eren at the end, but that ties in a way to what Eren is doing, where Eren's not getting revenge on Marley. That's not what this is about. Eren is not doing the rumbling to get revenge on Marley. No, the scale's much bigger, right? Eren has no need to get revenge on the world, technically. He's just, in Eren's mind, defending his friends and saving them. And in Eren's mind, how to do that is to destroy the rest of the world. That is his tunnel vision, right? That's what he believes he needs to do. So it's not revenge. Eren and Connie are like representations of themselves, right? But we're going to talk about this, okay? Because Eren is doing the same thing Connie is doing. It's not out of revenge. It's about saving someone you care about. Okay? That's what this is about to Connie. He doesn't care that Falco knows Gabby. That's not what's important. And so he lifts back the curtain and shows Falco his mom. And Falco's like, oh my God. And she looks exactly the same. In 4 years, nothing has changed. And Connie's like, don't worry, it can't move. It's been like this for years. And it's really sad that Connie calls his mother it. It can't move. Mm-mm. And Connie's not killed his mom out of the hope that maybe she can be returned back to her normal self. So, and the sad thing is with the brushes, with the toothbrushes, the sad thing is that implies that he's cleaned her teeth before. That this has happened. It's very bizarre. But that same stare, and you kind of see, like, you can almost see the way Mappa animated her skin. You can see the veins through the skin, which is like when Falco transformed in episode 19, you can see all the veins and stuff lighting up. It's the same deal, right? Mm-hmm. And Falco's like, what are you going to do after showing me this? What's the point? And Connie looks down at him and he's like, and you can tell Falco's like, what are you going to do? Why are you showing me this? What's the point? And Connie, it's like, he hesitates. He almost can't do it. He's like this innocent kid. And Falco's just like, what are we doing? And he has a very Elena moment. That face, that old man face, Connie's old man face that he makes is a very Elena moment. It's just like when she was looking down at Armin with that contemptuous nightmare feel face, and she's like, okay, go help Aaron. It's the exact same face. It's Connie being like, can you help me brush the Titan's teeth? And it's the funniest, in the oddest way. Isayama has some like moments of weird humor in this episode. We'll talk about the festival. We'll get to the festival. But he has moments of weird humor. This is one of them. This is one of those like, gotcha. And I can just see this playing out in the manga. I can just imagine in my mind, there's a panel of Connie looking at a panel of Falco and them just having this stare down. And then the next panel is Connie being like, want to help me brush teeth? And the audience being like, Isayama, what are you doing? Just that's all I can imagine. You don't get a chance like this every day. Ha ha ha. And Falco's like, the fudge? Falco's just like, wait, what? And then, of course, we've got to climb up there to brush. Let's climb up and take a look. The same, yeah. Sounds good, right? I'm convincing, right? And Falco's like, I guess, right, you weird person. And thank God, Gabby and them, they show up right as he's about to go up the ladder to brush Connie's mom's teeth. That's a phrase I never thought I would say in a discussion. Just as Falco and Connie were about to climb a ladder to brush Connie's mom's teeth, Gabby and Armin show up. The insanity of that sentence alone is mind-boggling. But yeah, then they show up, okay? And then Gabby's like, he's gonna turn you into a Titan. He's gonna turn his mom into a Titan shifter and feed you to her. And Falco's like, wait, what? And then Armin telling Connie to stop. Stay back, don't come near us. And I like that Gabby reins in the horse first. She's like, nope, not gonna move any further. Takes it very seriously. And, God. And I know that Armin tries to stop Connie, and Connie's like, I don't want to hear it. You wouldn't understand that you don't get it. You're just gonna say to give up on my mom and let him live. And he's like, I know it all, like you wouldn't get how idiots work. And that's such a thing to Armin. Armin's like, just the idea that Connie says that Armin is too smart to get like the basis of Connie's needs. He's like, you think of all these great strategies and everything, but you don't understand how someone that's just a lay person feels about their family. Connie's like, I know that there's something bigger than this. I know that Aaron and all of this is bigger than my mom, but it's too much for me. This is what I know. I know my mom. I know she's in pain, and this is a way to help her. He's like, I know you're smart. You think of all these other things, but that's not me. And then Armin's just like, and Connie's like, I know what you guys are going to want to do. You are going to say that my mom deserves to die and just to let him live, but that's not how this works. And at this point, I'm going to take a photo of this too. We might as well bring it up now. we might as well bring it up now because I've been thinking about it all day. And it's funny that this episode kind of brings it up. So, as you all know, Erwin Smith is one of my favorite characters in the series. One of my favorites. Erwin is S tier for me. I love him. He is the greatest commander, possibly in anime. And I miss him greatly. And in last episode, Armin was lamenting, saying that they picked the wrong person, that I shouldn't have lived. They picked the wrong person. But you know what? You know what's funny? Esteban, fellow patron and friend Esteban, was on Tumblr today, and I was talking about how to him about how basically I feel I can look Erwin fan art up because I can look up Erwin fan art because I know that Erwin's dead. So I'm like, you know what? There's no spoilers with Erwin. I can look up fan art of him. It's fine. And so there's lots of fan art of Erwin and Levi out there who I ship. So it's been a fun time. But in that same regard, I was telling Esteban about this, and Esteban's like, so what do you think about Armin looking more like Erwin? I was like, oh my God, no, it's true. It's true. It dawned on me. It hit me like a semi-truck. I was like, oh my God, Armin is looking more and more like Erwin as this series goes on. The haircut, cutting his hair short with a little bit of the undercut. I was like, man, Mappa's making Armin look really good. And Esteban's like, you have a type. And I'm like, oh, I do. And so, and this is it, right? But Armin looks more and more like Erwin, right? As this series has gone on. And there are several shots in this episode. I'm going to make a Twitter post about it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you will see it around the time this episode comes out on YouTube. But there are so many shots in this episode where Armin looks a lot like Erwin. And I was like, huh. And I think that's intentional, right? And there's another shot in this where Armin is trying to figure out what the heck to do. And Gabby says, Falco used the Jaws power. And Falco's like, the Jaws power? What about Galliard? Like, poor Falco has no clue what's going on. He doesn't remember. He's like, I don't understand what y'all are saying. As Connie is taking him up the ladder. He's taking him up the ladder to throw him in the mom's mouth. And the mom is watching the entire time. And Gabby, I will say this for Gabby. This girl just lobbed off Aaron's head with an anti-Titan rifle. She shot Niall in the face. She is clearly capable of killing people. She is capable of doing tons of damage. But Gabby does not rush in. She stays by Armin's side. She says, you can't stop Falco. But she does not rush in to try to stop him because I'm sure Armin told her not to. And this moment too, I'm taking all the pictures of this. Armin looks like Erwin. It's bizarre. And he looks, and in the moment where Armin is like, he looks up, and what do we see? We see Erwin like on his horse, like during episode 11 of season 2, where he's about to get his arm bitten off. We see Erwin like charging into battle. And in that moment, Erwin did the right thing. Like, he charged to save Aaron from Bertolt and Reiner, and he kept moving forward. He told the cadets to keep moving. Even when he got his arm bitten off, he still fought, and he was like, this is just all I can do. So he just did the best he could to try to save his soldiers and to also rescue Aaron. And that goes back to once he had his arm bitten off, he told his soldiers just to leave him. Like, here's the thing. Armin believes that he's not worthy of Erwin's mantle because he thinks that Erwin was this larger-than-life figure, and he really was. I talked about in the last episode, and I've talked about this in the comments on the Discord and on Patreon, but Erwin essentially has been split into 4 people after his death. You have Hanji, who is the heart of Erwin, the commander, the heart of the Survey Corps. Hanji is carrying on Erwin's spirit through their heart. Then you have Armin, who is the strategist, but I would also argue has Erwin's compassion, and we'll talk about that. Then you have Jean, who has Erwin's leadership and skills to be a leader. And then I didn't talk about this in the last episode, but Floch is in there too. Floch is the dark legacy of Erwin. Floch is the rhetoric. Floch is the speech that is used to rile up the soldiers. Like that speech and motivation, that's all Erwin, but it's like Floch uses it in the darkest of ways. But the thing about Armin that I wanted to tell him in the last episode was Armin was lamenting that he was weak and that he wasn't like Erwin. But I'm like, Erwin had his moments of doubt. Erwin in Perfect Game and back in Thunder Spears, Erwin was looking at the mound of corpses and feeling bad for himself and realizing that is what I'm doing worth the cost? Is saving, is my goal and my mission worth all the people that are dying for it? And this is kind of where Armin gets a little bit different than Erwin. Armin decides, because Armin's self-sacrificial, as we've talked about in season 3, back in Hero and Midnight Sun, Armin is like, okay, I don't want Connie. I don't want to hurt Connie. I don't want Falco to die. I don't want Gabby to get caught up in this. So the only option left is to sacrifice myself. I'm like, in the midst of it all, and Armin doesn't turn into the Colossal Titan because he would nuke everything and kill Gabby in the process, and all of them. Doesn't do that. He doesn't kill Connie's mom. That was what I thought was going to happen. I thought for a split second that Armin was going to kill Connie's mom so that she couldn't eat Falco. But Armin knows how much that would hurt Connie, and Connie just gave him this big old spiel about how he doesn't understand what it's like to lose his mom. And Armin's like, if I kill Connie's mother, that will solve nothing. It'll just make Connie feel even worse. And I can't kill Connie. He's my friend. I don't want Gabby to get involved. How do I save Falco? And so he looks at that image of Erwin and he realizes, he's like, I know what I have to do. And it's what Erwin would do. And I'm like, is it what Erwin would do? That's a very curious question. Would Erwin have done the same? Would Erwin have strategized and did the exact same thing? And you could argue that he would have. You could argue that he wouldn't have. But that's how Armin views this moment as him. He's like, what would Erwin do? And can I live up to that expectation? And Armin decides, he says, Gabby, please forgive Connie. Like, don't blame him. He's doing this for a reason. And Gabby's like, wait, what? And then he shoots himself over to the ladder. And I didn't know what he was going to do. And then I thought, he's like, stay back. And I thought that he was going to kill Connie's mom. But he doesn't. He looks down the mouth of a Titan. And that is the one thing. You can look back to Erwin staring down Reiner in the Armored Titan form, and Erwin standing on the bridge watching Eren rip the arm off of Annie and staring right down at it. Like that moment of fearlessness that Erwin had, Armin has that exact same moment. Where he's like, no, I'm not going to let Falco get sacrificed. And it makes sense. Armin feels like he shouldn't have inherited this power. So he's like, I'll just sacrifice myself. And in the moment you can argue, you're like, Armin, you just got onto Connie for doing something silly like this that's not going to benefit in the long run, but you're going to sacrifice yourself? Of course you will, you suicidal maniac. Again, Armin and Eren are two sides of the same coin. And he chooses, he's like, no regrets. And he's about to cry. And Connie's like, wait a minute, say something, Armin, what are you doing? And Armin's like, you told me not to talk, so I'm not going to. God, it feels like I'll let my actions talk. And he cries and jumps down into the mouth. And Connie's like, well, shit, no! And Gabby's like, oh my God. And he lets Falco go, lets him fall off the ladder, and saves Armin. And luckily Falco grabbed a hold of the ladder. He didn't fall a story to break his neck. Good on you, Falco. And that eye. And the mom's eye follows. It's so creepy. And that's when Falco finds out about Colt and all of that. As Connie and Armin are sitting next to each other watching him. God, that sucks. Poor Falco. So Falco knows the truth. He knows about Colt. And he knows about inheriting the Jaw Titan. And Armin goes to sacrifice himself and ends up getting saved by Connie. So it's just like Connie's resolve that he thought he had in the end. He knew what he was doing wasn't the right thing to do, but it's what he decided to do, and so he was going to go through with it. And have no regrets. And Armin's like, well, then fine. Then I won't have any regrets either. If this is what we have to do. And then Connie's like, what if I hadn't saved you? What would have happened? And Armin's like, then I guess I would have been ate by your mom and she would have turned back into a human. But then Connie says, and inherited the colossal titan. If you thought for a second, you know that only make her suffer. And I'm like, well, how is inheriting the jaw titan any different? How is inheriting the jaw titan any different? What's she gonna have to go save Reiner now? You know, that seems to be the jaw titan's destiny, is to save Reiner no matter what. But yeah, I'm like, what did you think was gonna happen? I don't know how her inheriting the colossal titan would have been any different than her inheriting the jaw titan. I guess other than becoming a living embodying nuke, but still, being the jaw titan's not too different. Yeah, I'm like, come on, Connie. But from there, when my mom sent me off, she said to be a splendid soldier. So I want to make some comparisons here to Connie. Make some comparisons over here to old Reiner about the whole soldier motif. About being a splendid soldier. And the idea of what that entails. What does it mean to be a splendid soldier? And yet her son almost killed a kid and a friend. And that's kind of ties back to Reiner's whole deal, right? That Reiner, as a soldier, he almost killed... he almost, ended up being responsible for killing Aaron and Armin and them and the others. At the time, they were only 14 or 15? So they weren't that much older than Falco. So technically, a kid and a friend, if you could view, Aaron and them as being 14 or 15-year-olds, they were technically still kids, and they were their friends. So there's similarities there between Connie and Reiner, and it's going to tie back at the end of this episode in a really cool way. So, yeah. That's the kind of soldier that I am. And Connie's like, and I hate that. He's like, I nearly killed an innocent kid and my best friend because I wasn't doing what my mother told me to do. And then Armin says, me too. I couldn't stack up to the commander. And I'm like, but Armin... I was like, and I'm like, it's so hard to compare yourself because it's just like Levi said, nobody is going to replace Erwin. That's not possible. But that's why Armin and Hanji and them and all of them work together to fulfill Erwin's legacy and to act as a cohesive unit and to come together to be like what Erwin was. But yeah, you can't replace him. And I think Armin was trying to replace Erwin, and that just was not going to happen. He's different. He's too different from Erwin. You can make similarities in how they look now and the air of that commanding authoritative air that they have. It is similar, but Armin is not Erwin. And that's okay. But poor Falco about Colt. And Connie says, Armin, I want to be a soldier my mom could take pride in. Okay. And I love, and that's another moment. God, there's so many moments. I'm going to find pictures of Erwin and compare them to Armin on Twitter just to show you all because it's blowing this episode is blowing my mind. Esteban, you've put an earworm in me and now it's an obsession. I'm like, Mappa, did you just look at pictures of Erwin and then Armin? I want to see the manga at some point to see if Armin ends up looking more like Erwin when he's older. He says, let's go save people in trouble. I want to be a soldier my mom is proud of. So that's where he says we need to save people in trouble. And that kind of ties back to the last episode, what she was telling him. She's like, you're going to go off to be a soldier and save people. And Connie's like, there's a lot of people in trouble. Not just in Parody, but around the world, right? We got to go save people. Okay. And looking up at that big blue sky. And so then we have the information available for public disclosure. Ragako Village, a village that was deserted after being overrun by Titans. Upon their arrival, the scouts discovered a single Titan with extremely small limbs, which made it unable to move. Later, when Titans were being eradicated from the island, former Ragako resident Connie Springer requested for the village to become a Titan observation zone and be left as is. So Connie made the request that nobody stay there and that they cover up the mom and that it's just like a shrine there. But it's the weirdest thing, y'all. We're talking about, you were all talking about the Titan that was crawling around the ground back in season 3 in episode 22, and the fact that it was cruel that nobody was killing it because it was just sitting there like crawling and burying its head in the dirt, and that somebody should just put it out of its misery. I'm like, I get why Connie is keeping his mom there because she's all he has left, but is it living for her at this point to be stuck in this nightmare state? You can make, I mean, that's saying a lot of things. That's going into a lot of conversations about end of life care and things like that, and it's touching on a very sensitive subject that, I mean, in real life, I understand someone wanting to be there for their family member up until the point that they die. The thing that makes this more complicated is that Connie's mom cannot die. She's going to stay like that forever until she either eats a Titan shifter or until, you know, unless Eren does something to change her back into a human. He waves a magic wand. He waves one of the magical little ribcage bones and does something, you know, unless something happens along those lines, she's stuck like that forever. And it's an odd conversation. Like, would you leave her like that forever in the hopes that you'd eventually find something? Or what happens if you die and she's just stuck there for all eternity in this nightmare state trying to eat something? I don't know. And you could have, like, it kind of goes back to, like, zombie stories and things like that, them keeping, like, zombies alive and in those types of fiction. So it brings up a whole slew of questions, right? And things for discussion. But speaking of which, speaking of people at the end of their lives, sadly, it is Louise. Chicken fries. Our poor chicken fries. She took the scarf. So I'm going to put Louise on the RIP list because she says she's not long for this world. Now, whether or not that is true, I guess we'll find out. But she held on to the scarf. Of course she did. I made the prediction that she would die and give Mikasa the scarf, but this is not how I pictured it happening. I thought they'd be on, like, the battlefield, and Louise would, like, pull the scarf out and throw it to Mikasa, or she'd be, like, in Mikasa's arms, like, bleeding out, and be like, here, take the scarf. And that's not exactly what happens. I also like Mikasa in this trench coat. For the record, Mikasa in this trench coat, I like it. I like the style. It is not military at all. It's just, she's in just a beige trench. I like it. Still has the scar, still has the tattoo bandaged up. And she asks, did you come looking for me, or did you come looking for the scarf? And then Mikasa's like, I knew you would have it. So both. She came to look for Louise and the scarf. She's like, I'm sorry. I thought it'd bring me closer to you. And there's this weird thing. Mikasa seems so uncomfortable with how much Louise is devoted to her. She seems super uncomfortable with it. Probably because she's had to come to terms with her own devotion towards Eren, and she just sees Louise as a reflection of herself. She sees her as a mirror, where she's like, oh, okay, this is how I was to Eren. And you can tell Mikasa doesn't like it. So she's like, I don't like this. But Louise, she represents that devotion that Mikasa had, and that Mikasa now is trying to refrain from, right? And so when Louise says, I thought it'd bring me closer to you, Mikasa's just like, And she looks a lot like Levi there. The Ackerman genes are strong, y'all. Ackerman genes are strong. I think Mikasa and Levi look very similar in this episode, even though their moms are totally different. Well, Levi's mom's an Ackerman, and Levi's dad is an Ackerman, which Levi's dad does not really look like Kenny or Kutchel. It's interesting. She says, I have thunder spear shrapnel in me that they can't remove. And you can see her arms kind of draped over her. And so it's a pity I won't be able to see the free world that Eren Yeager creates. So she's still stuck by Eren until the end. But she doesn't think she's going to make it. And Mikasa doesn't say anything. And then Louise says, it wasn't much, but I had the chance to speak with him about you. And I'm like, I'm sure Mikasa really wants to know. And we see Eren sitting in his chair, you know, she's about to feed him like these little pot pies and some water. And he's just sitting there in his chair by himself in his OP garb with his man bun. And I wish we got to hear that. I wish we got to hear him actually talk to her. That would have been good. This looks like just like a manga panel that they've animated. And she says he talked about wanting to throw the scarf out. So did Eren know she had it? Eren wanted to throw the scarf away. Which makes Mikasa want to keep it. Yeah, he said he wanted to throw the scarf out. And Mikasa, that's when her eyes, she like gets really wide-eyed. And Louise says, so rather than throw it out, I thought I'd just hold on to it because... And then Mikasa's like, I wanted you to give it back. And Louise is like, oh. And then Mikasa takes it. And Mikasa she's pretty cold here. She just wants the scarf back. And at the time I was like, okay, are you wanting the scarf back now because Eren doesn't associate with it? Are you wanting it back to prove him wrong? That's what I want to know. It's like when Eren said he wanted to throw it away, is that Mikasa being like this? Is this like her pseudo rebellion? She's like, oh, Eren wanted me to get rid of this scarf? No, I'm going to keep it. Screw him. I'm going to keep it just to prove him wrong, just to make him realize that it's still... Because, yeah, when Eren... During Savagery, Mikasa brought up the scarf being like it represented his kindness and his humanity, towards her and his love towards her. And he said he'd wrap that scarf around her as many times as she wanted, saying that he would protect her as many times as she'd want, right? And so... when Louise says that he wants to throw it out, he wants to just distance himself from that humanity as much as possible, right? To get this job, the rumbling, done. And at that point, Mikasa's like, no, this scarf is a representation of his love and his kindness. He may want to throw it away, but I'm not going to let that happen. It's like a resolve, Mikasa's resolve. Mikasa takes the scarf back. And in that OP, she wraps it around her at the end, right? So that's a fun little call to that. Mikasa takes the scarf back. All right. To show that Eren has a human side. Be like, no, you want to present yourself as a monster? That's not true. You're just human like the rest of us. And Louise says, I became a soldier because I admired you. And God, that shot of Mikasa is beautiful. I love that shot of her. Yeah, go and take a picture of that too. There's going to be lots of pictures on Twitter this episode, just for the record. But, and she says, I have no regrets. And she's like, because I gave my heart and my life following in your footsteps. And Mikasa walks out before she even finishes. Mikasa's like, I don't want to hear this. Mikasa, girl, savage. She's like, I'm not even going to listen to you finish. She's like, I gave my heart and my life following in your footsteps. And Mikasa's like, well, I'm about to change them footsteps, so I don't want to hear it. So Louise says, no regrets. And that she was devoting her heart to Mikasa. But Mikasa's like, screw that. I'm hoping this is Mikasa's first step towards becoming her own person. I really am. I'm really hoping that Mikasa is taking that scarf back. It's sort of like when somebody has a symbol of oppression or a symbol of something that represents, when there's a symbol of something that is oppressive, one of the ways to stop that viewpoint is to take that symbol back and repurpose it and make it your own, right? And to make that have a new meaning. And so I feel for Mikasa, she's going to take that scarf and what represented Eren's kindness and humanity towards her, she's going to turn it into something that's her own. And I really hope that's the case. I want Mikasa to gain her own agency and become her own person, especially in light of what they're probably going to have to do. Because here's the thing, she goes along with it. They said they're going to save the world. Now, they didn't say they're going to stop Eren or kill Eren. That's not how they phrased it at the end. They said they're going to save the world. Now, that could mean talking to Eren, trying to convince him that this is a bad idea, stop the rumbling, let's stop it before it goes to where you can't do anything more. Let's not go until you go too far, you can't turn back, right? They didn't say we're going to kill Eren. It's just we're going to save the world. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all goes down, right? And then we cut to them cleaning up the houses and everything now that the Titans are leaving. The last of the rumbling Titans as they're all headed out. Finally, an end to all this noise. And then I love this, the contrast. An end to all this noise. To me, it sounds like the bells of freedom. Right? So, I think that's so funny that we have, some call it noise, The noise of the rumbling. Some call it noise, and we've seen John clutching his ears, Mikasa not being able to sleep, and some call it the bells of freedom. Isn't that funny? It's labeled these two things that are totally different, right? It's all a matter of perspective, huh? Interesting. And then we have all of the military people gathering on their carts and everything as Floch declares himself as the leader, right? Our Eldian empires endured the world's persecution for 100 years. And it's weird how he phrases that. We've endured the world's persecution for 100 years. I'm like, well, is it the world's persecution? the most of the world, to be fair, was ignoring parity because they were afraid of King Fritz's vow that the rumbling would happen. So most of the world didn't give two shits about parity. They were off fighting Marley and fighting wars and having their own scuffles and turmoils. It was Marley that was persecuting them. And Marley wasn't really even persecuting them for 100 years. Marley was just sending random titans to the walls as per Willie's and the Tiber's orders. Not necessarily Willie's, but the Tiber family. And the Marleyan government just sending wall titans over, pure titans. They weren't really persecuting up until Shiganshina when they decided to go get the founder. So, interesting words. Interesting words, Floch. But again, he's inherited Erwin's rhetoric. Mm-hmm. That ends now. Now we are free in this crusty castle that's about to cave in. Our liberator, Eren, and we Jaegerists have triumphed over the world. Yeah, he got some bold words. Like, the rumbling hasn't taken out anybody yet, but he's already declaring the victory. And you could argue that Floch is good at gathering people together. You could see in the crowd here, you see military police jackets, you see garrison jackets, you see survey corps jackets. Like, back in season 1, all the different flanks of the military in parity kind of had a little bit of a bias against one another, right? Like, the military police thought they were like elite compared to the garrisons, and especially compared to the survey corps. The survey corps was looked at like the dogs of the military, like they were the lowest end of the ladder. And here, to Floch's credit, he does rally them all together and is like, no, we're all free. We're all free from the oppression that we've been under. So you gotta give him a little bit of credit. And whoever this guy in the back is, that has the biggest cojones in all of Attack on Titan, can we get a name for him? Because this guy has the biggest balls in the entire series. Because look at Mikasa. She looks, I'm going to take a picture of this so I can show you all how little shits she gives. I want you to look at this. This is amazing. This guy right here is like looking over to Mikasa. She looks like the most fiendish, like the woman that you do not want to mess with in a dark alley. She will shank you. And this guy's like, say, Mikasa, will you join the Jaegerists and rule as one of them? The balls on this man. I'm like, dude, I don't think anybody has ever just outright come up to Mikasa and started a conversation with her. Is this the first time this has happened? I feel like it is. But then there's that line, will you join the Jaegerists and rule as one of them? Because Floch said, he's like, you guys are heroes. Which is funny because it's exactly what Yelena told them down in the cellar. You're heroes of Shiganshina. And so I like that they view Mikasa and Jean as like high up on the ladder because they helped Eren Yeager. And I'm like, dude, what are you gonna ask her out or something? What? And then she says, not interested. She just kind of turns, and he just isn't scared or anything. He's like, well, it looks like Jean's made up his mind. I'm like, who is this guy? I hope he has a name. I feel for him. I almost want to toast this guy. You had the balls to talk to Mikasa Ackerman. And you lived through it. Interesting. He says, looks like Jean's made up his mind. And then, of course, Floch is like, give your hearts, doing all that. And Jean is just looking down at her. And see, at this point, we don't know that they have a plan. At this point, we don't know that they've all met up the night before and went through a plan. So a whole day, okay, so looking at the timeline with all this, we had the night where they were in the jail cell, right? Where they were in the jail cell, and he looks stressed. And I don't think they met up that night. Then we had the next day. So time is moving. Time is a weird thing in this because we have Mikasa and Jean when they were in the jail cell, and you had Armin and Gabby on horseback trying to find Connie and Falco. So that all happened in one night. And then during the day, we had Gabby and Armin and Falco and Connie meeting up with Annie and Hitch. Well, technically just Annie. And then meanwhile, I'm assuming that Mikasa went to visit Louise and Jean was by himself or with Floch. And then that night, we assume that everybody all met up together that night and formed a plan. They all met back up and formed a plan. And then this is the following day. So a whole day has passed before this, right? And so interesting. Okay, so that's a timeline where we'll have everybody all together. Mikasa and Jean, Annie, Reiner, Imjar. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that look between... At the time, I thought that the look between Mikasa and Jean was Mikasa questioning Jean's loyalty and Jean being like, Mikasa, I don't know what to do. I thought that's what that look was. But it's a red herring. It is not. It is they know exactly what they are about to do. Mikasa has a very Peak vibe to her. Mikasa's like the opposite of Peak. It's weird. Peak is like open like, hey boys! And like totally gets the boys simping for her instantly. And then Mikasa has that same like prowess as Peak, but it's cold and distant. And that one guy was still like all about it. So interesting. And them saying, give your hearts. And it's become a chant. Give your hearts all around the kingdom. And we assume they're going back from Trost back to Shiganshina, right? This whole long live the Jaegerists. Give your hearts and long live, this one's for Aaron. Man. And seeing all these people. And I guess the people in the village, you have Connie and Armin walking around with Gabby and Falco. Gabby and Falco don't really stand out as different. They don't have the armbands on anymore. So they don't look different. And then you have Armin and Connie in scout, their scout coats. But if they assume they're part of the Jaegerists, then they probably don't care. They just think they're part of the crowd. So they don't know that they're, not alongside them. But Armin's like, we should hurry up and see Reiner. And then Gabby's like, it's okay. He needs to sleep. He'll be out for days. I like that. I like that Gabby's like, no, don't worry. He's fine. He's sleeping in a house somewhere. We're all good. And Armin just looks down at her like, okay. If you say so. And so they say, is this detour a good idea? And so they say we had to fill our stomachs. So yeah, to be fair, Falco's like, is this okay? And Connie's like, well, before we go off and do this crazy mission, we need to eat something. Right? We need to get some food in our stomachs. So yeah, we need to take a slight detour. And they have like the cherry pie and they have like the meat pie here. And if I was on the Great British Baking Show, I'd say the crust is too thick, but this scene is bonkers. Isayama, when Isayama makes a festival happen in this show, stuff goes down. And it's kind of like, I feel like, I said earlier in the recaps that I feel like Isayama has had some really bad breakups. And so he just doesn't want romance to happen in this series because he doesn't believe in the power of love. At least not romantically. I also think that Isayama went to a bunch of festivals as a kid and had the best time of his life. Because anytime there's anything happy and hopeful in this show, it happens at a damn festival. It happened back in episode 4 from One Hand to Another. And it happens here with this festival because Armin and all of them, they just sit down. And they just sit down, and I'm sure it's not by coincidence. I'm sure Annie was like, or maybe it is. No, maybe it seems to be by coincidence. But they just happen to sit down by Annie stuffing her face with pie. Oh my God. It's the craziest thing. And at first I looked over and I'm like, oh my God, that girl with blonde hair. Is that Annie? And then, yeah. And so Connie's like, if all the heart... Again, this is Warrior. This is Peak from Above and Below. This is Isayama reveal 3. This is 4.0 because you had Bertolt and Reiner just being like, hey, I'm the Armored Titan, I'm the Colossal Titan. You had Aaron just popping into the room with Armin and Mikasa during Savagery and Children of the Forest. You had Peak and Above and Below just walking in on Aaron like it was nothing. Here, Isayama was like, oh yeah, there's Annie. I thought Annie was like going to show up in the middle of a battle. I thought Annie and Connie were going to fight and maybe Armin was going to get involved. I thought Connie was going to die. I had all these expectations. And then Annie, she just shows up right there with right there sitting next to them eating pie and stuffing her face. Seems legit. And they're like, and Armin's like, if all the hardening has come undone, it is very likely that Annie has survived too. And Annie, she hears Armin talking about her and starts coughing like, they're right there, right? And that tips them off. Oh my God. And they all look over and Annie's just sitting there stuffing her face, looking pitiful. And I love that they're all like, what? And Armin has the gleamy eyes and so does Connie and all of them. And Annie's like, just let me eat this. Oh my God. She's like, just let me swallow this thing of pie. And Connie just laughs at her. And Armin's like, excuse me? And he's like, Annie is stuffing her face with pie. And Armin being best possible boyfriend material. I'm going to take a photo of that too. Armin being best possible boyfriend material, like steps in, he's like, leave Annie alone. And Connie's just like, she's stuffing her face with pie. And he's like, cut it out, Connie. She eats like a pig. And he's like, it's her first pie in years. I'm like, does Armin even know that? Does he even know it's her first pie in years? Probably not. I'm going to also note that she does give like a little smile here. So take that, shippers. Oh my God. What? It's like, this is the biggest breath of fresh air that Attack on Titan has given me in I don't know how long, maybe since Above and Below. And that wasn't even really a breath of fresh air. It was just, it's like the one moment of levity that we get after all of this doom and gloom and despair is Connie just being like, she's sitting here stuffing her face. The female Titan, one of the Titan warriors, one of the most deadliest beings on the planet, is sitting here in a cloak stuffing her face with pie. And it's like, we're at the end of the world, and what can Connie do? Connie's like, all I can do is laugh. We're working with Marlians who've been against us. We're working with the people that killed Sasha, and it's fine. It's all in the past. It's like Connie accepting, like, it's all in the past. What can we do now? Like, what's Annie gonna do? You know? And it's the most wild thing. And then Hitch shows up. Sorry, the line took forever. So basically, Annie just started eating their pie. Annie, like, sat down and started eating their pie and stealing it, which kind of fits her character, because Hitch went and got them their own pie, so she didn't realize that Annie had gotten hers. And then Hitch was like, she's gone. But let's be honest. She says, Dear Hitch, I ran into Armin and Connie and decided to join them. And so I'm going on ahead. Sorry for the trouble. Thanks for talking to me these past 4 years. Goodbye. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, Annie, your gloomy roommate. That is the sweetest thing. That is the sweetest thing, that Annie is like, Hitch is spared. Because, yeah, Annie knows that what they're about to do is really dangerous, and Hitch would be in a lot of trouble. And Annie's like, you saved me. You were kind to me. You saved me. You could have killed me, but you let me go. You helped me get this far. But I know that you're probably going to get, if you get caught in the middle of this, you probably are going to die. And she's like, I know that you're good at your job. And here's the thing too. Annie is like, probably thinking that Hitch needs to be, it's like what Keith was saying in the last episode. Keith was like, you need to stay in the ranks, Surma. You and the young cadets need to stay in the ranks with the Jaegerists, rise up through the ranks and make the change then. And that's kind of like with Hitch. Like, Hitch is best needed helping people. And Hitch is not going to do, she's just going to possibly be a liability or get hurt if she goes along with Annie and co. So she's like, no, you stay here. You help the military police. You do it. You work your way back into the inside with the military police, and we'll conquer from within, sort of thing, right? I feel like that's what Keith was telling Surma and them too. Like, if you want to change things, fall in line with the Jaegerists, and then as time goes on, whittle your way through. And it's like, it'll be like a stream through a boulder. Like, it'll take a long time, but eventually it'll crack through, right? But that's so sad. I just love that, your gloomy roommate. And then here's the line. Hitch says, she's like, well, then, good grief, I can't finish this alone. That line. I can't finish this alone. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about Eren. I'm not lying about that. I have comments. But this idea keeps getting brought up. And it's been brought up a lot in this episode. The idea of that we have strength in numbers, that we're not fighting alone. And yeah, Eren has strength in numbers. He has millions of colossal titans, obviously, but he's a one-man show in this with all these titans around him. And I feel like Kitsch's phrase, "I can't finish this alone," is very indicative of something Isayama, it's like a meta reference Isayama is putting in there into the whole story. And that I wonder if it's, in my mind, I was thinking, is that like some kind of like little hint about Eren? He can't finish off the world by himself, so it's not going to go. Grisha says everything, Eren's going to get his way, but I'm like, we'll talk about this when we get to the end of the discussion. But yeah, it is sad because now he's just like, well, I'm by myself now. Dang it. It was better when I had Annie with me. So then we come back to the castle, the broken castle in Shiganshina, and I like that they kept the animation. If you look, you can see the spikes from where Eren used the Warhammer powers. You can see the spikes and everything like that. I am assuming at this point that the other volunteers are dead. I'm assuming they've killed the other volunteers because Anyan and Yelena seem to be the only two they brought up there. And yeah, they're the leaders, but I imagine they've killed the other volunteers. There's only like 5 or 6 left, right? 6 or 7. I feel like they've killed them, and Yelena and Anyan are the only ones remaining. And so Floch has gathered them all in a circle saying, "Comrades of the Empire, thank you for gathering." We'll tie up old Floch right here, I guess. Our Burger King. Gathering comrades of the Empire. We'll now execute 2 volunteers who oppose the LD Empire. So maybe the other volunteers are alive. He didn't say the last 2. He just said we'll execute 2 volunteers. And then Jean cocking the gun. And so you see some of the cadets that are younger. They don't have a coat yet. You see like Surma, some of the cadets there. You see the military police, all of them. 2 volunteers who oppose the Eldian Empire. With this, we shall carry on Eren's will to dominate the world. So him carrying on Eren's will. Eren's will to dominate. Okay. All right. To dominate the world, O Floch, by declaring our reign over Parody Island. So the Jaeger is basically saying that they're going to take over, right? Okay, like this military regime has gathered up and taken it over. This criminal is Yelena. And you know what? Yelena's crazy. She is batshit insane. But I don't like seeing her depressed. Seeing Yelena depressed is not fun. Because I like her character, because her character is so like larger than life. And she's just such in a state of gloom because Zeke has been taken from her. And the plan didn't go as planned. The real reason she rebelled from Marley and supported the Eldian Empire was so that she could support Zeke and Zeke could obtain the founding Titan's power and wipe out Eldians with their euthanization plan. So Floch knows the euthanization thing now. And then they're like, in the end, she's a filthy Marleyan. Yeah, and I'm like, she's not a Marleyan. That's the thing that's so frustrating in this scene, is that she was taken in from her own country and by people that basically were taken over, that Marley took over. So she's not really a Marleyan. She's just an honorary Marleyan, kind of, right? And I love how the sunset, it makes all their eyes look red. It makes their eyes look bloodshot and red. It just adds to that kind of savagery of it, right? Ugh. But yeah, Floch saying that she was part of the euthanization plan, so we want her out of the way. Eren managed to beat Zeke and halt the plan, which we all know of, but this criminal served as Zeke's loyal pawn. That's such an interesting thing in the moment, because you could make the argument in the last episode, this whole idea of being a pawn, of being someone's servant, right? In the last episode, Floch made this big deal about, is pride worth dying for? And is it so wrong to be submissive? And I'm like, well, Yelena, in your regard, by calling her, this criminal served as Zeke's loyal pawn, she's kind of submissive to Zeke. So you could argue that she's kind of, Floch made this whole big deal about, well, why can't they just serve us? What's wrong with that? I'm like, well, Yelena was just serving Zeke. So, if Yelena had wanted to, she could have lied and said she was serving Zeke and submitting to him because she thought that was the only option and a way to survive. She could have lied and said that, and it would have kind of tied to Floch's ideology that he tries to tell Jean and the others, being like, well, if you just, and the volunteers, like, just submit to us and join the Empire, and we'll welcome you with open arms. You know, Yelena could have lied and said that she didn't have a choice, but at this point, Yelena's like, I'm kind of beyond that. So, and I kind of respect that about Yelena's character. She's not slimy. That's what I like about Yelena's character. She's not slimy. A slimy character would have begged and said that they were doing things because they had no choice. That's kind of my thing that I hated about Rod Reese. And I'll go back, you know, I'm still going to hold my grudge against Rod Reese till the end of this series. But my thing I didn't like about Rod Reese was that he's slimy. He was like, I didn't have a choice. I had to do this. And you could argue that eventually over time he had convinced himself that he was doing it for reasons. But Yelena's not like that. Yelena is not slimy. She never makes up an excuse. She's just like, no, I'm serving my god Zeke and this is his plan. She's very honest about that and you gotta respect it. And then the one guy calls her a whore. And I'm like, when has Yelena had sex? Like, it's like, they call her a whore and I'm like, Yelena hasn't done anything with anybody. So I'm not saying that she doesn't want to do that with Zeke, but she's not. So I'm like, they're like, send her to hell. And he says, Yelena, do you have any last words? And she says, aren't you gonna shoot? You know what, Yelena? She's up there for me. I gotta love Yelena because that's her last word. She's like, at this point, she's just like, get it over with. She's like, I'm tired of listening to you talk. She's like, aren't you gonna shoot? Because at this point, she doesn't see the point in living. And then they're all like, die, Mainlander. Subjects of Ymir will prevail. Your Ymir's bloodline will last forever. And yeah, they're all just like, just the mob mentality. Just like their faces and shadows and reds. Like just the mob. They almost look like a bunch of titans. They just look like a big bunch of monsters in this scene. And that's intentional, right? Shoot her. And here's the thing. Floch. He can't do it. He doesn't do it. It's the weirdest thing. He doesn't shoot her. They're all telling him to, and he says, not yet. And he's not in on this plan. He doesn't... there. He's not in on this plan. He did not expect them to escape at all or want them to. So honestly, it's like Floch is... The weight is on, right? Floch shoots that one guy... right? He shoots the one guy of the volunteers in the head because the guy fought against him, right? And so you could argue it's that self-defense thing, right? Floch is a coward. He's like Jean. They both start out as cowards, right? And they both taken on different personas of Erwin to kind of help them grow and develop. Jean has become a leader and Floch has become a rhetorician. He's become someone to use rhetoric, right? Floch is a leader, but not nearly in the same way as Jean, right? And so, but they're both on the inside. It's funny that they're standing side by side. Jean and Floch are. Neither of them really want to shoot the person in front of them. And it's funny because when that guy in the last episode went to attack Floch, it was easy for Floch to kill him because it was self-defense. He's like, oh, I have no choice. If I didn't shoot him in that moment, I was going to die. And that can't happen. No. So it was easy for him to pull the trigger. But here, Yelena is willing to die. She's like, it's over. Just do it. And he can't pull the trigger because that is very much like the situation that Floch was in. Floch wanted to die back in season 3 and he didn't. And he wanted to kill Erwin, who was the cause of a lot of his suffering and pain, but he couldn't do it. And here it's the same situation. It's paralleling Erwin too. He wants to kill Yelena, but he can't do it. So he's like, I'm not going to pull the trigger first. I'm going to make Jean do it. I'm going to make Jean pull the trigger first. Again, in all intents and purposes, Floch is the reason that they all got away. Floch could have killed Yelena in that moment. He could have done it, but he didn't. He wanted to make Jean go through with it first. So a lot of this is in Floch's court. Just the what if scenarios, right? Hashtag no regrets. If Floch had pulled the trigger first, I don't think we would have had the same conclusion that we do now. But actions have consequences, right? Actions have consequences, and now Floch's going to have to deal with those. So he says, this is criminal as Anyan Kapan. He aided Eldia without knowing of the euthanization plan. However, right, he'd rather die than live under the Eldian Empire. So you have Anyan and Yelena who have two different views in this situation. You have Yelena who's like, yep, I helped Zeke, don't care, kill me. And you have Anya, who's like, I knew nothing about this, but I'd rather die than serve you jerks. So, no. And so then Floch, God, he's like, it's not too late to change your mind. And I get, it's so weird. Floch's character is so fascinating because he gives Anya a chance. He gives him a chance. He says, do you all have any last words? He offers Anya a chance to change his mind. It's like Floch's having second thoughts. It's the weirdest thing. Like Floch is showing, like he's showing his humanity and how hard it is to take a life, right? When it's not in self-defense, when it's not in the heat of battle, when it's not defending yourself, and it's hard just to take a life, right? And Floch wants to paint himself as a demon so badly. He wants to paint himself as the demon that Erwin Smith was. But Floch's not. He's just a cowardly person that has, taken this power and ran with it. And Anya just laughs. He laughs at Floch. And I love that animation of Floch. God, why does everybody look good in this series? Why does this episode make everybody look great? He laughs. He says, I aided Eldia. Get away from my drink. He says, I aided Eldia to save my homeland from Marley, but I was helping you too. Yep. And it's just, he's like, and what did that get me? I love this. He's like, my homeland will be crushed and my family massacred. He's like, I was helping you all. I was doing it because I thought it was going to help things. And now you're all going to kill my family. He's like, and the only ones left will be you xenophobic shits. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just goes around looking at Jean and Floch, and Jean just looks, ugh. He's like, sucking up to you guys for life isn't worth it. No. Even you should know how insane indiscriminate killing is. Yeah, Anya calls him out. He's like, do you not know how you got in this situation? Do you not, you're doing the exact same thing people have done against you. You're just continuing the cycle. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And he's like, why won't any of you understand? And everybody's body language in this shot, everybody's either got the closed off arms, or they got the head tilted up, or they got the hands on the hip, or they're looking down at him, or they're angry. None of them understand, or they don't want to understand. He's like, don't just stand there, say something, Jean. And Jean pointed the gun at him. And I really thought for a second that Jean killed him. I thought for a second that Jean drank the Kool-Aid. But it was the warning shot. It was the signal. He fired the 4 shots into the ground. And Anya's like, shit, what? Mm-hmm. And Floch's like, huh? I will give Floch this too. He immediately knows something's wrong. He's like, hey, God, I want there's too many photos taken this. Floch's badger face is amazing. He has a little badger face. And Yelena's like, like doesn't say a word. That callback that John says, whoops, I missed. It reminded me so much of when Floch was on the roof with Keith and he took the gun out and he shot at Keith's foot and he was like, whoops, I missed. It's the same thing. It's like, just comes right back at you, Floch, right? Oh. And he's like, oh. And Floch's like, what's the big idea? And then that is when, okay, and I want to make note. I want to see who is that. Because there's a second where Floch like hears something. Okay, so there's 2 people that get flung up, and it looks, oh no, it's 2 soldiers. Oh, it's just his body's getting flung everywhere. Amazing. I'm gonna have a lot of fun on Twitter and Discord with these pictures. I'm just gonna tell you all. But yeah, and then both of them looking over, and Floch's like, oh my God, that giant mouth. What? And then John pushes Floch out of the way. And here's the thing. This is the funny thing about it all. If you didn't know that they had forged the plan to help each other, you would have thought in that second that Jean pushed Floch out of the way to save him. Kind of does, but the whole intent was for Jean. Jean wanted to get in Peek's mouth with Anya and Yelena. That was the point, right? And just pushing Floch out of the way was to get him out of the way of it all. It's great. It's a great fake out, right? Because Jean genuinely looks surprised. The funny thing in all of this is that they all say that the cart titan is gross, and it's Peek, who everybody's been simping over. Am I going to get a chance to ship Jean? And Peak now? Porco's dead, y'all. Porco's dead. It's free game. It's on. The cart and the horse. Our King Jean, the horse, could get with Peak, the cart. We could connect worlds. It could be Niccolo and Sasha 2.0. What? Is this possible? Am I shipping too soon? Am I shipping too soon? But if, oh my God, if Jean and Peak get, she's his type. When has he seen her in regular human form? Jean has not seen her as regular human. He's only seen her as the cart. When he sees that she's like a person and like is his type because he loves long black hair. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We'll see. I'm shipping it. I may be shipping Peak with Jean. Peak may be one of my favorite warriors, and I may be shipping her with Jean. She doesn't have a lot of time left, so they just could make the most of it. Maybe. We'll see. And I thought for a second, whenever Jean was in Peak's mouth, the way that it's shot, the way that it looks in the angle, I thought for a second that he was going to get bit in half. The episode does a really good job for a second of faking you out and making you think, oh, is Jean going to die at the hands of Peak? And then they run out of there. And they're like, it's the cart titan. They got away. Jean got eaten. And Yelena. And then I love that the first words Floch says is, shit, where's Mikasa? She doesn't give two shits about you, Floch. No. Does not care about you. I love he's like, where's Mikasa? And then we have to go after. And then that's when Floch puts two and two together. I love this face he makes. He's like, wait, where is Mikasa? She didn't come up here to the roof with us. Floch knows. He's put it together. Them cheeky bastards. They got him. And so then we have Connie and Mikasa. 4 gunshots in a row. John's signal to continue the plan. It's all coming together. The dots are all connecting. Yep. And they got 2 wagons. They're like, we've got enough weapons and food. And Armin and Mikasa leading the wagons. And all their eyes will be on the other side of the fort. Let's go. All right, to make them... So while they're focused on the other side where the cart titan got away, they're going the opposite way with all the food and stuff. And so then we have... I want to go back there and see who's in what wagon. So we have Connie and Mikasa in one wagon. And we have Armin with Gabby and Falco and Annie. It's funny, we have all the Titans together in a wagon. You have Armin with Falco and Annie. And then Gabby, I'm assuming maybe Reiner's laying down, and that's it. And then Connie and Mikasa are together. Interesting. So there's a shot of somebody looking out the window, right? There's a shot of somebody looking out the window there. Because Annie notices, Annie has the military police, and notices saying, someone's watching us. Is it Keith? Because it looks like it looked like that it was a person's shaved head and had the jacket and everything. Is it Keith watching them? I want to say it's Keith. It's Keith or Surma. But, because it kind of looked like the outline looked like a man that had a bald or shaved head. I think it's Keith, because Keith said that he was just waiting on them to die. I think Keith is watching them leave. So we'll see, right? And so we gotta hurry up, Mikasa. And Annie, interesting, looking back, being like, So I'm assuming they went off to get Reiner, or they already had Reiner at this point. But they're heading out of Shiganshina. And there's no more walls! There are no more walls to stop them, so it's free reign. They can go anywhere now. The whole island is a free-for-all. Okay. Interesting. I wanted to see if we could see. We can't see. It's funny because they're at Trost though, right? They're at Trost. They were at Trost, or are they at Shiganshina? Because no, I guess they're at Shiganshina because there's the mountains on the other side where the ocean is. Okay. Go back to this. Okay. So, I'll go back to this. Thank God, Jean throwing up in the river. Oh my God. Jean throwing up in the river. Being like, oh, I ain't ever going in a Titan's mouth again. Oh, honey, when you see what that Titan looks like when she's not a Titan. Oh, And then I love that Hanji's like, the cart can stay a Titan for months, right? Don't you brush your teeth? And then Peek's like, excuse me, that's not something you should say to a lady. It's a rude thing to ask a lady. And Yelena there. And so then Anyan says, when did you partner with Marley? And he says, last night. And he's like, why? If you stayed a Jaegerist, you could have had everything you wanted. And this, I wanted this to happen so badly. This is what I've wanted from Jean this whole time. And I can write it up there on the board, but it's just, God, Jean looks so great here, even after he's thrown up. But I love this, him telling Anyan. And them sitting in the Mappa, like animating the water. It's so beautiful. I'm sure it's CG, but it's beautiful. And the sunset. And he's like, I wish I could have plugged my ears and stayed cooped up in that room. And not had to face reality, right? Not have to face the decisions he had to make. But then those ashy bones would have never forgave me. Ah! Jean, those ashy bones. The ashy bones. Keeping, like, such the callback to episode 16 from season 1. The ashy bones wouldn't have forgiven me. He's like, nope, Marco wouldn't have let that happen. He's like, I made a vow. I made a vow that I would not face them ashy bones again. God, I love it. I love how he looks so handsome with his hair down in the water and everything. And I love Anyan's response. He's like, Jean, I don't quite follow. But thanks. Anyan's like, I don't understand what you're talking about, but thanks for saving me. And he's like about to cry. Aww. It's like the sweetest thing. And Jean's like, just wash off already. And I love he splashes Anyan. It's like, oh, we could ship, there's so many possibilities now. There's so many possibilities. We can ship Jean with Peek. We can ship Jean with Anyan. Our bisexual king has so many options. Do I ship Jean and Anyan? Maybe. Jean and Peek? Yes. I'm ready for that to happen. And then Yelena is just still in a daze. And she says, why me? Why did you save me? What's the point? I'm with Zeke. And Hanji says, securing you was part of our deal for us to borrow the Cart Titan's powers. They wanted you back. They wanted you alive. I love Yelena looking back. And Magath with that face! Magath is so stone cold serious. He's so hard to read. And he's just staring through Yelena, like staring into her soul, like, bitch, what? And then meanwhile, you have Reiner, who gets the snot kicked out of him by Annie, and Annie's like, get up. The funny thing in all of this is, Annie has kicked Reiner, Annie kicking him, kick to get up. Here's the funny thing. The last time we saw Reiner and Annie together in a scene was like back at Door of Hope. It was back at Door of Hope and Declaration of War where it was the flashback and we had Annie and Reiner have that giant fight. And Reiner, I don't think Reiner technically won that fight. I guess he did because he came up and got behind her. But here, Annie's like, yeah, I've had my food, my pie. Now you get up and eat something. And Reiner just looks pale, like he looks sick still. And she's just looking at him like, are you going to figure it out? You're going to figure out that I'm here? Put 2 and 2 together. And then he does, and he's like, oh, Annie. And then when he looks around and he sees everybody else, but Gabby and Falco rush to his side. And for a moment, you think that it's just Gabby and Falco with him and Annie, but mm-mm. And I like that they're right with him. And Gabby's like, calm down, Reiner. Don't worry, they're our allies. And then we cut to Connie. And then it's just like Connie getting the chance to see Reiner face to face again. And they haven't had this chance since back in season 2, back in Charge. What? But it's the craziest thing. You have Connie and Annie and Reiner who have all saved each other in the room together. And it's like they've all saved each other. Connie's like, I want to talk to you two. And now they're working together. What? And God, next episode, I want to hear these conversations. I could watch a whole season about it. There's not much time. Let's go. And Reiner's just like, what? Reiner's like, I had resigned myself to dying. I just saw Porco die. Aaron seemingly has won, and I've resigned myself to just ending it all, and I can't. Isayama's like, no, Reiner, you're not dying yet. No. He's like, where to? And Mikasa's like, well, and Annie and Armin. My ship of Annie and Armin, yes please. And I love this shot, to save the world. I like that Connie gets to say it. Connie gets to say to save the world, because he had that whole thing about becoming a soldier like his mother wanted. And she wanted him to help save people. And that's what he says they're going to do. We're going to go save the world. And that kind of ties to why Reiner became a soldier, to help his mom, and then got caught up in all this. So it's a nice tie into all this. It's like, man, how about that, huh? That's such a good shot. The gang's all here. Everybody's together on this board. We have Mikasa and Jean and Connie and Armin, the remainders of our cadet squad, along with Levi and Hanji. Aaron and Sasha are the only ones missing. You have that. Well, and Bertolt, which Bertolt's technically there. And then you have McGath and Peak. You have Levi. You have Gabby and Falco. Really, honestly, you've got the only ones, McGath, Gabby, Connie, and Mikasa are technically the only ones that don't have Titan abilities in the group. So there's that. So we got half Titans, and Hanji. Half Titans, half subjects of Ymir. You got McGath in there too. It's a squad. And I think Keith is there. I think Keith was the one in the window watching him. Now, whether Keith is going to help out the Jaegerists find them, or, which I don't figure he would, but I'm like, would he, or would he go after them? I don't know. Would Keith go after and help him because Keith feels responsible with Grisha? I don't know. I feel like Keith may know something else that we don't know yet as the audience. I don't know. Because I still feel like there's stuff with Aaron and what he's thinking that we've not been privy to. And so I'm going to flip this over because I want to talk about Aaron. I want to talk about Aaron and the other comments from this episode and kind of round us out in our discussion with that. And that'll be about right? So I want to round out this discussion talking about Aaron. Because we've not seen Aaron this episode. He's been mysteriously absent for reasons. But there's lots of comments about Aaron, mostly from like episodes 19 and 20 and 21, because that's where y'all are at right now as I'm recording this. And so I want to go through and kind of address some of those. So I'm gonna take a moment and just write them up here on the board and then come back to them. Okay, so I had to go back and write up the rest of these comments that I had, but yeah, so I had lots of comments talking about Aaron, so I want to kind of gather them all together and talk about them at the end of this video to kind of round out our discussion and everything. But basically, I've talked with Christopher Peterson about this, but also Shaylee on YouTube. We're talking about this. Shaylee was like, man, season 4 part 2 has this weird tension to it. I'm like, yes. I've told Christopher Peterson, I think the phrase is like dreadful hype. Like, you're excited for what's to come, but it's this, like, feeling of dread. Like, episodes 19 and 20, I wanted to throw up. But I wanted to watch what was going to happen, but my stomach felt queasy. It was the weirdest thing. But there's just this feeling of dread and tension. And we're at the climax of the story. The gang's all coming together. Everyone's assembling. And it's the most bizarre thing, but it's just a dreadful hype. So, talking about Aaron. Here's the thing about Aaron. And I'm going to add to this as we go, my own kind of theories with this as well, along with the comments. But Aaron, I don't think that Aaron, here's the thing that's so funny about all of this, is that we don't know how much Aaron has seen into the future. That there is some mystery still left with Aaron. I don't want to know, but all we know is that I like Sacha Purvis noted on episode 22 of season 3, it hits so much harder now. It hits so much harder. Because once you realize from episodes 20 and 21 that Aaron, the moment that he kissed Historia's hand, he got all those memories of Grisha and future self and everything was flooding in. He got those memories. And so he started to figure out that he knew that he could see some of the future and knew where things were going. And it just set his resolve into motion. And he was like, okay, when he's on the beach, he has Grisha's memories. And I love that Sacha described it as his heart whimpering. And that's so good. It's such a hard, hurting moment because you can just feel Aaron's despair where he's like, if I destroy all of our enemies over there, can we be free? Like, he's seen the future enough to know that he's going to try to do it. And now he's trying to convince himself, is what I'm about to do going to give us freedom? What is that going to look like? Is it really going to save my friends? I'm doing it, so it must mean that it is, but what is that going to be like? So it's almost like Eren is like, I can't stop now. I've seen the future and I have to see it through. But is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be worth it? And it makes his actions in season 4, part 1, even more tragic. Because then you see him, when he has the conversation with Reiner in Declaration of War, he knows he has to keep moving forward to get to Zeke. So he can't stop. He's like, I understand how you feel, Reiner. I'm the same as you. I didn't want to have to do this, but I have to see it through and I have to keep going because this is what I believe is the answer. And it's like, oh. And so then Be Happy noted that when Eren, things snapped into motion the moment they met with Elena. She was the catalyst because it showed him that, no, now is the time. I'm going to get with Zeke. This is how this is going to go down. And it just set those things in motion 10 months ago. And so, yeah, it's crazy. But Eren has essentially, for all intents and purposes, he's become the devil of all Earth. He's the founding titan. He's become the villain of this story. He's the protagonist, but he's become the villain of the world. Maybe not the villain to the audience, but to the world, he is the villain. And he is trying... And here's the thing, his actions to protect others are going to impact others. I think of the phrase, the things we do for love. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, I'm not going to spoil Game of Thrones. It's great up until last season, but it's great. But there's a moment in season 1, the very first episode, the pilot episode, the very first episode of the season, of the entire series, one of the characters does something, and it's an act of violence that didn't have to happen. It's an act of violence that didn't necessarily have to happen. It was the most logical thing to do in the moment, but it was a choice. And this main character makes that choice, and the reason why they make that choice it's an act of violence. They hurt another character. And the reason why they do it is that he says the phrase, the things we do for love. And that's exactly describing Eren. Eren is doing all of this, not out of hatred or spite necessarily at the rest of the world. Out of hatred of the system, yes. Out of hatred that the world has become like this, or so he thinks. But he's doing it out of love of his friends and family. And he thinks this is the only way I can save them, is to do this. And is that flawed? Yes. Yes, it is. And that's the thing. Eren's choice to save his friends and parody, we talked about this in episode 21, but it's the idea of freedom, and that he's taking freedom from others to give freedom to other people. He's sacrificing has to be made. That kind of ties back to Floch. Floch saying, well, we have to make these sacrifices. It's for the greater good. And so that's what they believe. And so what I like is that I think Isayama wants us to be uncomfortable with Eren. We followed Eren throughout this entire story. And Isayama's like, yeah, that brat at the very beginning that y'all probably thought was this wild kid with all these crazy ideas and, but we root for him and we want him to, get his way and to have things go for him. What if that happened? Right? But the thing is, Eren is flawed. He is not infallible. He is not Aizen Sosuke from Bleach. I've been thinking about that ever since episode 20, when the whole thing where he has Grisha, and it's like all I can think about is the justice planned meme from Bleach. No, Eren is not Aizen Sosuke. Thank goodness. I love Aizen, but no, he's not Aizen's character. He's a human, and he's flawed. He's our protagonist. He's human. He's flawed. You can say, I was talking with Christopher Peterson about this in the comments. I hope that some of this is tunnel vision, that Eren can only see forward. He's not seeing the damage that he's leaving behind. Character-wise, I hope that's the case, because it shows Eren is a flawed human, but he just happens to have the access to a godlike ability. And any of us in the same situation as Eren could make that same decision. And I think that's what Isayama, in that interview that you all told me back in part 1, the interview where Isayama's like, well, I'd like to think that I'm like Armin. I'd like to think that I want to make the diplomatic decision and the right decision, or what seems like the logically right, morally right decision. He's like, I'd like to think that I'm like that, but there's a part of me that thinks that I'm like Eren, that all of us have this in us, that Eren is the dark side of us we don't want to acknowledge exists. All of us are capable of making this decision, right? And we could, as if we were in the same boat as Eren, we could do it and believe we were justified. And we can argue against it, whatever. But the point is that Eren is a flawed protagonist that is human like anybody else. And he's doing something that he believes is the only option he has. And it's tragic and it's heartbreaking because we've come to care about Eren and we've come to really love his character and who he is. And to see him feel like he's in a corner and this is the only option he has is the most heartbreaking thing. Because what Eren doesn't see is he can only look forward. He can't look back. And the ED, when he goes to look back, he disappears. It's like it won't let him do it. Because if he looked back, he would see all the destruction and he would see the chaos in his wake. Eren has no clue that this whole stuff with Floch, this whole stuff with Mikasa, Armin, Connie, all this has gone down. Eren has no clue. No clue this has happened. And he's just so laser focused on saving his friends and doing the only thing he knows how to do that he's not seeing what's being left behind. And it's heartbreaking. And what's being left behind are these remnants that are all gathering together and making a decision too. Being like, do we just sit here and do nothing? Or do we make a choice? Do we? And so I think, my theory is, I don't think they're necessarily going to try to kill Eren. I think Armin is going to want to try to talk to him and be like, what are we doing? Why didn't you tell us about this plan? What's going on? Talk to us. Let us do something here. Look, we brought all these people together. I don't think that Eren, I debated back in the recap, I debated whether or not I thought Eren's goal was to bring them all, was to do like a Lelouch thing from Code Geass and bring them all together and view Eren as a common enemy. I'm doubting that now. I really am. And I'm doubting it for a couple reasons. One, going back to episode 17, Eren did not suspect that Reiner and Magath and co. were coming to parody. He did not suspect that they were coming to parody at that time, right? That tells me when he says only you, Reiner, would think of something as stupid as this, like coming before the Global Alliance. I don't think Eren suspected they were coming. I don't. I think he's surprised by it. He calls Reiner stupid and says it's a bad idea, but and we've argued in the comments, or not argued, but we've said in the comments how when he says only you'd be the stupid, maybe isn't Eren saying that Reiner's stupid for coming, but he didn't think Reiner would be that reckless to just dive in without thinking about it, right? Because Eren has clearly thought about this plan a lot. He's not happy about it, but he's thought about it and he realizes it's the only choice he has. But Reiner just jumps gung-ho in and Eren's like, well, did you not think about this? So I don't think, because Eren didn't seem to suspect Reiner and co coming, I don't think he planned. I don't think that Eren suspected the Warriors to team up with Armin and co. I don't think he saw this coming. I really don't. I think this is a surprise. This would be a surprise to Eren, because back in Brave Volunteers, Eren was saying that we're all monsters. There's no way they'll work with us. Nobody's willing to come to the table. What's the point? So I think inadvertently, Eren has caused these people to come together, and it possibly could save the world. That's the crazy thing. I think that Eren doesn't realize that Armin and all of them coming together could make a difference. It could do something. And that makes me think that Eren has only been shown parts of the future, but he hasn't been able to see all of it. He hasn't been able to see it through and how things end, right? So I don't know. I've always said that Eren is going to die before his term is over as a Titan shifter. And I don't know if Armin and co are going to have to kill him. If he's like, fine, if you take me out, and maybe it will become like a Code Geass thing where he's like, if you take me out, the world will call you a hero, and then they'll have talks and we can start peace. Maybe Eren will realize that once they get to him and talk to him. Maybe we only have 12 episodes, possibly. We have 4 episodes left of this season, and if they make a season 4 part 3, that's maybe 8 or 9 episodes at the most. We don't have that much time in the series left. I don't think Eren's going to destroy the world. I think maybe he'll destroy Marley, or maybe he'll get to Marley and they'll stop him before he completely wipes it off the map. I don't know. Maybe it'll be enough where the world will see what the Rumbling could have done, and then be like, oh, wait, whoa, hold on, Parody. Whoa, we didn't mean all that, you know. Maybe something like that'll happen. And then Armin can sit down and start talking with people. I don't know. Armin seems to be the one that wants to have the dialogue the most, him and Hanji. But I just feel like I don't think Aaron realizes that what he's done is bringing all these people together in ways that I don't think he suspected. Because he didn't think it was possible, right? He thought the society and the way the world was structured would not allow for this to happen. But I guess because impending doom, YOLO, well, that's like Connie laughing at Annie being like, we're at the end of the world. At this point, why not? You know, I think everybody's just like, screw it. Let's just work together. Why not? What have we got to lose? And maybe that's the irony of it, is that it took something like that to bring them together. I don't know how I feel about that message. I don't know how I feel about Isayama saying that only when we're at the brink of apocalypse can we come together. I don't like that idea. And maybe that's Isayama saying, please don't get to this point where we have to do this. Please do this before we get to this point, if you don't mind. Maybe that's what he's getting at, but I just think it's interesting, right? And so we had different comments about, I wanted to note in the scene of Aaron ripping off his thumbs in episode 21, that's where he tears the skin in his thumbs off. Your thumbs, your opposable thumbs are often what people associate with making you like a step above ordinary mammals, right? We're a step above pigs and cows because we have opposable thumbs and we can do things with them. So the fact that he gets his thumbs ripped off is kind of like him becoming more animalistic, maybe. Maybe that's a sign. I don't know. It's almost like Aaron, and I've got these comments. These are from Shaylee, Sacha Purvis, from Sagnorm. Sagnorm, I'm going to quote you here in a minute. From Be Happy, and that's pretty, and from Maya B. But this idea that Aaron is kind of making the world like parody back in season 1. Back in season 1, the whole thing was that there's only parody. There's only the 3 walls, and humanity outside the walls doesn't exist anymore. And that's the thing. And then at this point, it's like Aaron, in the most roundabout, ironic way, is going to make the world exactly what it was like in season 1. Yikes. So the thing about that is, though, I do want to comment. We've talked about in the Discord and on Patreon and in the YouTube comments, like, what would Erwin think about all this? I think that if that's the case, if Aaron, in the most coincidental way, is making parody kind of like it was in season 1, where there is no humanity outside what were the walls, I don't think Erwin would be on board with that, because Erwin's whole thing was that he was about discovering that there were people outside the walls. That was the thing. He's like, I want to prove my father right, that there are people out there, right? That humanity does still exist. And so I think in that regard, Erwin is kind of like, my dog is about to bark because there's probably a deer outside. But I feel like Erwin is a lot like, or Armin is a lot like Erwin in that case, because Armin's whole thing is about like the little things in life, like discovering these little freedoms, like meeting new people and discovering new cultures and having conversations and figuring out how we're similar and different, and like sharing pie and butterbeer over like something simple, right? That's Armin's whole deal. And I feel like that kind of ties to Erwin and his curiosity in wanting to see the world outside the walls. Like so I don't know. I don't think Erwin would be totally on board with Aaron's plan. I just don't. But we could spend like a whole video breaking down what Erwin would actually think, and that would be its own thing, right? And so I want to note too that Aaron empathizes with Ymir. I think there's been a lot of talk of, did Aaron manipulate Ymir? Yes, he did manipulate Ymir to make him do what he wanted, but he did also empathize with her, right? Zeke just wanted to use her. Zeke didn't want to recognize her as a human. He still saw her as a slave to the royal family, even up to the point where Aaron hugged her. But Aaron hugged her and showed her empathy. Even though he did use her, he did show her empathy and said, you are a human like me, right? And it's funny, when Aaron first met Ymir in the paths, Zeke commented that she's been here alone for thousands of years. And all Aaron says is, she's been up here alone forever. So I think Aaron does empathize with her, that she's by herself. But it's the funniest thing, in him helping her to recognize she's a human, she has choices, and that she's not alone, he's isolating himself. He's by himself in the Founder Titan, unless Zeke's there with them all. I'm assuming Zeke's there. So his actions isolates himself from everybody else, kind of like what Ymir's done. So it's the weirdest thing. Ymir and Aaron's actions have both isolated themselves from the rest of the world in the weirdest ways. And then there was a lot of talk. I was mistaken in episode 21. I thought that the guy getting married to the girl was King Fritz, and they got married and then had an affair with Ymir. No. Several of you pointed out that was just another random guy getting married to a random girl. Okay, so I was wrong about that, but that's interesting because that points out that OG Ymir just wanted love. She just wanted to know what being loved was like, and she saw that couple getting married and was like, I wonder what that is. And so you almost wonder if she was kind of Stockholm syndromed into being with King Fritz because she's like, oh, is this love? Is this what it is? And then at the very end when she dies and loses the will to live, she realizes that, no, it wasn't. He didn't love me like I thought he did. And I think that ties to Mikasa. Mikasa just wanted love, and she thought that Eren was the source of that. And the same goes for Zeke. Zeke's just always wanted love. He's wanted love and recognition, and he kind of hoped that Eren would give him that. But both of them have been proven otherwise as far as we know, as far as at this point in the story where we know. And then I really liked this quotation that was given by Sagnorm. Sagnorm talks about the parable of fate, saying, if there is fate, what happens if I jump off a bridge? Will I prove fate wrong by jumping off? Or will I prove that I'm just a stubborn person that was destined to commit suicide in an attempt to prove a point? So that's the paradox of fate, right? You have fate. And so if I jump off a bridge, is it doing one of two things? Is it proving fate right? Is it proving fate wrong that I did this thing despite fate? I jumped off this bridge. Or is it proving fate correct, that it was meant to happen? That I'm in control? So it's like either there's one of three things. Am I proving fate wrong? If I jump off the bridge, am I proving fate wrong and saying that, I guess we can kind of relate this to the rumbling, okay? So the rumbling being fate, because Eren views a lot of this whole thing as the attack titan, that he has to move forward, it has to happen, the future is already set in stone. But the future, there's always choices that can be made. And we've seen throughout this series that no, you make choices. They're the littlest choices in this entire story can have drastic consequences. There's so many what-if scenarios. If one tiny thing had changed, the rest of the story would have been completely different, right? And so Eren's idea that, no, this is fate. I'm meant to do this because I've seen the future and this is how it is. It's kind of tied to this rumbling. Like, how do we view this? Do we view this as Eren proving fate wrong by him going to Ymir and saying, no, despite what fate said, fate wanted the world to destroy parity, but despite that, I've proven fate wrong by coming here and going against the king's will and starting the rumbling? Or is it proving fate right? Is it proving fate right, saying, no, I was always meant to come here and always meant to change things because it's the attack titan, it's how things are set in stone? Or is it just the fact that people are human and we make choices? And screw fate, it doesn't exist. It's just a choice that's been made. Because, yeah, what happens if Eren just didn't go with it? What happens? That's been my whole thing about this. Eren sees that the future, he sees a future. And that's the one thing we don't know is how far has Eren seen ahead? Has he seen a future that he's happy with, but he's seeing the ways that he has to get there and he's not happy with the ways? Has he seen the results and he's not happy with the means to the end? Is that it? Or has he seen the end and he doesn't like it, but he thinks that that's what I have to do? So that's the big question for me, and I don't want an answer yet. I feel like by the end of the series, we'll get our answer of if Eren has seen the future, he likes the future, but he's very wary, apprehensive, and terrified of the means to get there. Or does he see the future, doesn't quite like it, but he's like, this is the only choice, so I have to do this. Or is he just a human making these choices, and he's just doing what he thinks is right, and he's just a human, and he's, fallible like the rest of us? Or all of the above. I don't know. It's fascinating, though. I've not gotten through all my comments from episode 20, so I feel like there's going to be more stuff with Eren to talk about, and probably in episode 25. We got 4 episodes left. I feel like in episode 25, I'll have more to say about episode 20, and then I'm going to watch it after episodes 21 and 23 come out on YouTube and Patreon, so I'll probably have more comments for that. But yeah, y'all, so many possibilities. This is stuff that I love. I'm a character-driven person in a show. I'm a character-driven person, so these are interactions that I've waited an entire series to see take place. Annie and Armin together, Jean and Reiner. Jean spared Reiner back at Shiganshina so that they might have a conversation. Mikasa and Reiner, Peek and Jean, Peek and Mikasa, Hanji and Levi with Armin in them again. Like, there's so many possibilities. I'm really, really excited. So, with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction discussion. This was a great episode. I'm really excited for episode 25 now, but we'll get to it. So, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 25 of season 4 of Attack on Titan.